and I can see all you guys on the right, in the boxes. And when you come on, when you start talking, you come onto the full screen. But when I talk,
go up there, go up to the upper right.
yeah.
And what does it say? Gallery view or
yeah, it says gallery. And
okay.
and when you guys come on, then you're talking and you fill up the screen, and the next person starts talking, then it switches to them. But it doesn't seem to do that for me.
Up there at the top where it says speaker view or gallery view, that's actually a button, and that's telling you if you want to go to that mode. So try clicking that, and it'll change to where they're all on screen at the same time.
Right, I did that, and that sometimes works, and sometimes it doesn't. Do I need to have a share screen, a sharing?
Nope. The share screen is only if you want to take over and show something that's on your screen, like you're doing a program demo or something like that.
Okay, because it seems to. Yeah, I get highlighted some of the time in speaker view, although I am not right now. But never show up full screen in gallery view.
Yeah, that's worded kind of weird. What it displays, like right now, I'm actually displayed in speaker view, in gallery view right now. Yeah. So I six images up here, or 6 blocks potential, because we're waiting for Ray to get on. But if I look at that button up there in the upper right hand time, there's one that because I'm recording this. There's one that shows exit full screen, and the other one either says gallery view or speaker view, but it shows what the option would be, not what you are. Does that make sense? So like right, I'm actually in gallery view, but the button up there says speaker view. And if I click on it, I'll get the full screen on who's ever talking with the 4 or 6, depending on your screen size, running down the side, the bottom, or whatever. You can move that around. And it'll say now speaker, it'll now say gallery view. So it toggles back and forth. They would have been better off if they'd have worded that button to say something, you are in speaker view, or you are in, or now in gallery view, or now in speaker view, because it looks like, well, I'm on, it says speaker view, but I see 6 people up there. Well, that's stupid, because the button is saying that's what your option is.
Yeah, I understand. And what I'm saying is that like right now, I'm highlighted in the gallery view, with 6 of us. But if I switch to the other one, it looks like you're the only one that's in the full screen, even though I'm talking. I don't know. Am I explaining myself? Sometimes I'm highlighted and sometimes not when I'm talking.
Well, if you're the one talking, I don't think you're going to see yourself, because I'm in the gallery view right now. And since I'm speaking, I'm still seeing you full screen. So I think the person who's talking is not going to see themselves full screen. So
yeah, they do. They do, Frank. It does work that way. Like when
I don't see myself full screen.
When you're in speaker view.
Oh.
But the button will say gallery view. Remember, that's what the alternate option is. When you're actually being displayed when you on your screen being displayed in speaker view, you'll get 4 or 6 of the most recent communication. Like if we had 20 people, you'd only see 6 of them on the right or left hand side, depending on where you move that window. But you can change that little window up there. You can see it's got some little icons. You can minimize it. You can maximize it. You can change it depending on what your screen capability is. You can change it around to either be just a single person or a group or whatever it is. It's kind of limiting. So when there's only a few of us on, it's not a big deal to do that, because then it switches back and forth. But when it just takes getting used to. I know.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that this is the first time I've actually seen the gallery view. I guess because I was running an older version of Zoom.
That might be. It would have to be pretty old, because it's been that way since I started with it. So.
Okay. Well, anyway, when I'm talking, I get a yellow. Who's ever talking, they get a yellow frame around their picture. Who's talking?
That's correct. When you're in gallery view.
No, this is speaker view.
No. What's the button up there say?
I'm in speaker view right now, and I have 8 people that I can see right now, and my picture has the yellow frame around it.
Okay. So up there in the upper right-hand corner, what does it say? Speaker view?
Speaker view. Now, if I click gallery view, your full screen and everybody else is on the right.
Well, what does that button up there in the upper right say?
Gallery view. Gallery view.
Okay. Because that button is displaying what the other option is, not what you are in. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Stupid. Like I said, it's stupid the way they worded that, and I've bitched about that because, like I said, they should have a little message that just pops up on the screen. You are now in speaker view. You are now in gallery view. That kind of crap, you know. Or that, better yet, that would be a better button up there that said, go to gallery view, go to speaker view, and then you know, oh, that's a button to do that. Morning, Robert. Morning, Janine. Morning, Larry. Morning.
When I'm speaking, can you see me switch to the full screen in speaker view?
Yes.
Or you do? Okay, because I don't.
Yeah, no, I don't either. I have to go to gallery view to see him speaking full screen.
Okay. Oh, but when you're speaking, do you see yourself fill up the screen?
No, I don't.
Which mode there is? Like I said, there's 2 modes.
Yeah.
If the person speaking is filling the screen, you're being displayed in speaker view, but the button up there says gallery view.
Ah, it's reversed.
The button is not saying what you're in. The button is showing you what you can go to.
I understand that.
Okay.
It's stupid the way they got it worded. It's stupid because everybody goes through this every time. And every time I've been on a conference with these guys to ask them questions about it, they go, yeah, we keep bitching our programs. The programmers, they got to change that, make it a little, or put them both up there. Let you switch and highlight the one that it is, you know, who knows?
But when you're in speaker view, and although it says gallery view.
That's correct.
Do I show up full screen when I'm talking?
When it has nothing to do, that button only affects your display, doesn't affect us.
Oh.
In other words, I could be right now. I'm talking, and I'm presently being displayed in speaker view, even though the button says gallery view. Mm-hmm. But it makes no difference what I've got mine set at versus what you're watching it is.
Right. But when I'm speaking, do I show up as a full screen in that same speaker view?
If I'm watching it on my computer in the true speaker view mode, even though it's gallery view, yes, it does.
Okay.
It's so simple, but it's so confusing.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
So did anybody get a chance to watch the Apple keynote from the WWDC conference on Monday?
Yeah.
Anybody watch that?
A little bit of it.
Yeah, it's a little long, unfortunately. It was about, 3 hours or whatever it was, but it had some real interesting stuff coming out. Did you watch it, Robert?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And then I didn't watch a lot of times I'll watch the Leo Laporte version, but they talk so much in between. Sometimes I'll go back and watch that one after the fact if I want to see it, because I like to hear their comments like, ooh, that's cool, or that sucks, or that's crappy, or whatever it is. But then I almost always go back and look at some of the other pundits. Like I follow Renee Ritchie, who's on the what they call it, Mac Break Weekly, most of the time, and he's one of the few people that actually attends these things. So he comes back. He has his own YouTube channel called. You have to look it up. Go to YouTube and look up Renee Ritchie Vector. Because if you just put in Vector, you'll see everything else with the word Vector, or the name Vector, or a product called Vector, or a character in a cartoon called Vector. But if you put up Renee Ritchie Vector, every week he does 1 or 2 of these short little video segments. And he just released one on iOS 13, which we'll have in probably September, and also on Watch OS 6. And he really takes the his most recent one is iPad Pro. Do you still need a Mac laptop? That kind of deal. So that's kind of interesting what they've done, what he talks about there. And it's about 10 or 15 minutes, and you get a real short, concise version of what they talked about, which is kind of nice. So,
I'm sure the makers of Duet aren't too happy.
well, but you know what? That happens with everybody.
Yeah.
It's only taken Apple, 10 years that there's always been some way of connecting these things together. And I personally, supposedly the makers of Duet were former Apple employees, is my understanding. I first read about them. They were recommended by somebody who worked at Apple to, hey, if you're looking for something to do this, because there's been other alternatives besides Duet. What I liked about Duet was twofold. When I used the Bluetooth version, which is what Apple's is going to be, Apple's is going to be some kind of a Bluetooth or Wi-Fi version, I understand. When I used another company's Bluetooth version, I found that walking around or moving something just a little bit, Bluetooth's not the most robust system in the world.
Right.
That I would lose connectivity. And when I read about Duet and tried it for the first time, and I said, well, I get two things with Duet. First off, it's cabled. Now I don't have another broadcasted signal to have to worry about. Because I go in and I go into system preference, go into Bluetooth, and I got about 30 items listed in there because whatever I hook up my iPhone to automatically shows up on automatically gets added to that list on the iPad and the Mac as well. So if I delete it off the Mac, it's deleted off the other two as well. That's really convenient and really a pain. I wish I could kind of make them more unique, or it'd be nice if we delete it off this device only, or delete it off all your devices. It'd be nice if they worded it that way. Mm-hmm. And so that gives me two things. It takes one more broadcasted piece of junk out. I don't care. It's sitting next to I'm using my 7.5 inch Mac iPad, the big one's upstairs, sitting here next to it because I'll put like some extra windows and stuff like that where I'm working. So I'm getting a cable version. I'm not losing anything from a network connectivity standpoint. Plus, it's powering the damn thing. And that was always my biggest concern was, and also the automatic, I've got my iPads on my iPhone to automatically time out after like 3 minutes to save the battery. Duet's smart enough to realize, well, you're powered off the computer. I'll just leave it on. You don't have to I used to have to go in and turn that manually off. And so I really like Duet, and I may still use Duet.
Whose father played
in place of the
like I said,
we'll try it when it comes out. So we'll see.
Those are good players. Bob Boone, too. Remember Bob Boone? Bob Boone.
I remember everybody.
Mike Sosha. But too bad Kirk Gibson. Does he have dementia or he has something, doesn't he?
Who does?
Alzheimer's.
Who does?
Gibson, I think he said he had.
Okay, I'm going to mute it.
Remember that World Series home run when they won that hit in World Series?
Yeah.
Well, didn't Mike Sosha play catcher then? Back then, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, he did. You remember that one, Willie?
What's that?
Well, you're not even here.
I have no idea where that was coming from. So you guys want to talk, unmute yourselves manually. So click down there on the little picture where it shows the microphone blanked out. I don't know where that was coming from.
I would go for Jim or Jay Johnson because everyone else mouths. We're not moving.
It's Jim Abram because I went to the speaker view and that his one filled my screen, so it was
okay. All right, so that's what it was. That was a smart idea, Frank. I didn't even think of that.
I had a couple weird things happen last month with Apple where I think they're getting a little sloppy. I don't know if anybody else had the problem of printing web pages that sporadically, when they went to 12.1 as part of 10.14.4, all of a sudden, some web pages, when you tried to print them, you'd hear a bong. Did anybody else run into this? And
no,
I've heard that bong.
Anyway, it's apparently been fixed in 10.14.5, but I went on the Apple Community Forum and there were 3 or 4 workarounds to get around it. But it was really weird because there were some web pages that it would happen anytime you tried to print them. There were some websites that it would never happen on, and there were some websites that it would happen sometimes and not others. It was really a strange kind of thing. And there was one solution that I used was if you set Safari to always, when you logged in, bring up the page that was there when you last logged off.
Right, recently last open page, yeah.
Yeah, if you shut down Safari and then immediately opened it again, you could print the page. anyway, that problem disappeared, like I say, with this update that happened the other day. The other weird thing that I had happen, and I don't know, the firmware on the Airport Extreme, I don't know whether there's a way just to have Apple push that automatically, but the way I get it is I just noticed that the little green light starts blinking orange. And when that happens, I go into Airport Utility, and immediately it comes up and says there's a firmware update, and you just click on a couple things and it downloads it and everything's fine. Well, I got one of these things happen last weekend. The light started blinking orange. I went into Airport Utility, clicked on the firmware update that it brought up. It looked like it worked, but then I got an error message that said there was an error in downloading the firmware. But then the Airport Extreme turned to green, the light, like everything was fine. So out of curiosity, I called Apple support on the phone to ask them about it, then say, did I really update or what really happened? And they said, well, we know there's a problem where that message comes up in the firmware updating process.
They actually admitted that?
Yes, he told me that on the phone. And he said, as long as the light went back to green, you're fine. But I don't know whether there's a way, I should have asked them if there's a way just to have them push those firmware updates.
Well, but the problem is it usually requires the device to be rebooted afterwards, and not with connected. So you can put code in there so that when it gets disconnected, it reboots and goes back to where it was. That can do it, but that might be something that they don't want to happen for outside intrusion or whatever.
But
so I personally like the idea where it says you have updates ready to be installed, and let me make the decision whether I want to install it or not.
Well, that's another question. Did anybody else get that light to start blinking orange?
Yes, I had that. I had that too. And you're right. Unless you notice that the light's blinking orange, you have no way of knowing there's an update available. There should be some alert, something.
Yeah, they don't even flag it. Like these updates in software update, you get a little flag that tells you. But when those software updates happen, they never tell you.
There might be an option in going to airport. Going to airport.
All right, man. All right, dude.
Hang on, I'm gonna. We had somebody talking there again. Probably it might have been Glenn. He might have forgot that he was broadcasting sound.
But anyway,
there might be an option, Larry, in the Airport Utility. I'm not using it at the moment because the way I've changed everything around down here. That you might be able to have it. You might even be able to go into the Mac notifications and click on. There might be an option in there for you to be able to click on Airport to feed the messages from the Airport device itself down to your Mac. I don't know. Are you familiar with that at all, Robert?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch in.
What Larry was saying is that his airport needed an update, and the way he caught on to it was seeing that there was the yellow-orange light blinking on it. But if you don't have that right in front of you, you wouldn't notice it. Is there some way of getting a notification that there's an update and a firmware needs to be installed on the airport device itself to be forwarded down to your Mac or to your other devices? You know, like the notification does on the Mac.
Yeah, right. No, I've not seen any kind of notification ability, and it is just light driven. No, sorry.
The other thing that was weird, the update, the Mac OS update that just happened, 10.14.5. When I got the notification and went into software update, it said that updates are available, Mac OS 10.14.5 update, and then there was a second one there called iTunes Device Support Update. And when I went in and I went through the process of doing the Mac OS 10.14.5 update, both of those had separate buttons. When I went and did the 10.14.5 update, and that was fine, everything worked fine. But then when I went back to software update to do the second item, it was gone. Like it was incorporated. somehow in the 10.14.5 update, maybe. Does anybody know what that iTunes device support update was?
Okay, we're looking at Robert. He's
No,
the good.
no, I certainly they could easily have incorporated it. Some people might just be needing part of it, but I'm not aware of specifically what that item does. Apple isn't really big on publicly announcing what each component does, security update does, etc. For security purposes, for reasonable security purposes, and developers, we can go down and find out more about it. But most of the time, there's either not a lot of depth or it really is not worth the time.
Just real quick, Glenn, if you're listening, and Jim, if you're listening, and I don't know who iPhone, Mac, and Jay Moss, we just got on too. If you want to talk, I might have you muted. Unmute yourself. But we have but every now and then we'll get a phone call in the background and be talking, and we're all hearing it. So you might want to mute yourself if somebody starts talking to you from another room or you get a phone call. Anyway.
Jackie Robinson. Yeah.
Say Steve Garvey.
No, not Steve Garvey.
All right, we're listening to somebody.
No.
Who's
I would
lips
say
are
Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale, Jack Robinson, not Steve
iPhone Max.
Garvey. No.
mute iPhone
No,
S.
I don't think Steve Garvey was. He was good.
There you go. It's interesting. It might seem that people should actually come in a muted form and then let the moderator announce to unmute.
You know, there doesn't seem to be an option to be able to do that. Well, I take that back. There is. I'll look into that, Robert. I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
And then we'll just let them know as they join up. If you need to talk, unmute yourself or wave your hand funny at me or send me a text message or whatever it is. So.
That's right. Bart and Ray and Janine all at the moment are wanting to burp and belch in their own private space.
Janine, so did you end up buying the publisher? Did you buy that? Okay, we don't have any audio from you, Janine. You're unmuted, but we don't have audio. So you got something that's loose or disconnected or whatever. So yeah,
how I got my audio to work was I went into the settings for Zoom and played with those, and that's when my audio, you started to hear me. So
did you hear him, Janine? Click on the microphone button in your lower left hand corner. If that's where it is, and there's all the way down at the very bottom. There's a button that says audio settings where you can check stuff in case you got the wrong microphone picked or something like that.
No, I went to the settings for Zoom, the Zoom application settings for setting up the mic and video. I played it there, and then that's what started mine to work.
Okay, but you can also do that if you've got the little microphone down and the video down in the lower left-hand corner. You can click on those. Those are pop-up dialogues, and it'll get you directly into that audio settings or video settings. Still nothing, Janine. I know we had you earlier. I was on the Affinity website yesterday looking around. They've announced that morning, Jim. They've announced that the publisher is actually going to be officially released. I think it's June 19th. I think it's Wednesday or Thursday, something like that of this week. And the price, the retail price of that piece of software is $50. But if you pre-order it now, it's $34. Well, that's a pretty good discount. But something I noticed when I was on their website, if you buy, while you're on that page, if you buy any of their other software, they're giving either a 20% discount or a 10% discount or something like that off of all their products, including their books. They have some really nice hardcover books, and they're like $50, and you can get those for like $35 right now. So my problem with books, I love books. I just never get around to reading them, or when I want to read them, I never have them with me.
Well, the answer to that, yes. We all buy a lot of books, and they make great levelers until we get around to reading.
That's true.
I'm a book collector as well, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm real bad about that. And then I find myself like I carry all the manuals from my RV because everything in there's got a manual. I carry all the manuals with me, but I always forget where I've got those manuals at in the RV. So I've got them on the iPad Pro, the iPad, and the iPhone. Worst case scenario. And then for whatever reason, somewhere along the line, I've deleted one, and it's deleted them off all 3 devices because they're in iBooks or whatever it is. But at least if I have network connectivity, I can get it back down again. But so just about anything I buy that I do anymore, if they don't have an online manual, I mean, my favorite is I just bought myself. I wanted a cheap little camera that was. I mean, I'd like to get a couple of GoPros, but that's way down the road. But I wanted a cheap little camera. It's cheap, but it seems to work pretty good. But I bought this little dude off of Amazon for $100. Actually, it was $89, and it records to a solid state disc rather than 8mm, which is what I had in the past, 8mm or VHS-C. I tried them all at one time or another. And I wanted a camera that if I lost, I'd only be out $89 rather than a $1,000 iPhone or something like that. And a couple of things it doesn't have a remote control. However, there's an app that you can run it through Bluetooth and use it with your iPhone. So I can live with that. It's a little hard for me because I'm so big to be able to cram my hand around, but 9 out of 10 times it's going to be on a stick or whatever. When you charge the battery, you have to plug it into here. That means you got to leave the damn case open the whole time. But it's got a couple of nice things. Like as soon as you open the viewing screen, which does rotate around, as soon as you open the viewing screen, it powers up, and as soon as you shut the viewing screen, it shuts back down. So that's kind of nice. They said it would only work with a 32 gig card. I had a 64 crammed in there. Seemed to format. They don't use the word format. They use erase all, which is weird. But I thought, for $90, I can't go wrong. If I lose it, I'm only out $90. It actually records pretty well, and it records in like 1920 by 1080. So it's actually pretty decent resolution for the price. Plus, it fits in this little wimpy case here that'll slap on your belt. So, and the cool thing about it, when I had my 8mm cameras, of which I've still got, when I had my 8mm cameras, you wanted to buy a spare battery. They were like $50 or $60. These were twice the size battery for $10. So I bought a couple of spare batteries. I figured, hey, worst case scenario, I've got that option as well. So that's kind of cool. But I've got so much of this crap that I bought over the years. And anyway, the manual that came with it was like 8 pages, and the text is so small I have to use a magnifying glass to read it. So I went online, tried to find their manual online, because a lot of companies are doing that now, so you can go back and get them after the fact. Couldn't find the manual anywhere online. Went to their website. They make all kinds of, Hossbell is the name of the company. They make all kinds of weird little accessory stuff like that. So ultimately, what I'll end up doing is I'll end up scanning the damn manual, open it up inside of Affinity Photo, rotating it around, or into Preview or whatever, cropping it and getting it all, and making myself an electronic manual so that I can zoom up on the damn thing and read it with my poor eyesight. So, morning, Glenn. I've got you muted at the moment, or you've got yourself muted at the moment. So if you need to unclick if you want to, but or I'll just it's at your end. It's at your end. So, and we got Jay on there as well this morning, so that's good. Yeah, enjoy that cup of coffee. I'm about ready to get up and go for my third one. So anything else going on? Anybody? Janine, did we get you going? Not yet.
Well, the new Mac Pro looks really good, but I can only imagine what the price is going to be.
It's going to start around $6,000 is what they estimate, is what everybody's estimating, which isn't that far out of realm compared to what they have been. I mean, I'm more impressed, although I like and it does look like Cheese Grater 2, Cheese Grater sequel, I guess. Right. But I love the fact that you can pull both panels off. That was really smart, so you can get to the guts real easy. I love the fact that they have the optional wheels, which will probably be $300 or something like that. But it looks gorgeous. And it looks like they just about anticipated almost anything anybody wanted to do. I mean, the thing is loaded with ports and all kinds of connections and stuff. There's just no way a normal person could justify it. But they even thought it out to make it rack mountable, so that's smart. But I'm more impressed with the display. The display is phenomenal looking. And when I started doing some some reading on that, they're right. The broadcast quality standard displays that some of the guys like oh shoot, now I can't even think of his name. We're talking about, or Renee Ritchie was talking about on his website as well. Those are up in the $40,000 price. So a display for $5,000 that gives you that kind of functionality. I think $1,000 is a little much for that stand. But then again, there's a lot of mechanism in there to be able to handle that. So, and I love the fact that they built that monitor with the idea that you can rotate it into portrait mode. So that's really smart too. Because there's only been a few companies that have built stuff like that in the past. And of course, all the iPads and iPhones all have that capability. So I was real impressed with the Worldwide Developers Conference. I wish they'd have talked more about, I'm looking towards, this is a 2012 laptop, my MacBook Pro here. And it has 16 gigs of RAM. It has a 256 gig hard drive. It was one of the solid state drive. It was one of the few oddballs. I'm sorry, it's a 500 gig solid state drive. It's one of the few oddballs that doesn't use an off-the-shelf solid state drive. Damn Apple. So you have to buy it either from Apple, or you have to buy it from Mac Computing or somebody like that. It's slightly unique. My wife's was normal. Mine isn't. But I've never seen enough change from one year to the next year to the next year, the last 3 or 4 years. I used to replace my MacBook about every 3 or 4 years. I haven't seen enough change to make it worthwhile for me to go. I envy Robert's new MacBook Pro. Has the keyboard held up okay for you, Robert?
Yes, it has. And, you know, it has, oh, okay, let me backtrack. Apple has been wonderful. They have replaced the top case, which includes the keyboard. They have replaced the battery. They've replaced the hard drive. They've replaced the memory. They have replaced a couple other things as well. There was an issue, and I'm not sure what it was, but to track it down, they just kept replacing things until finally they figured it out and it stopped acting up. So I can't say for any particular item within this that it is held up. What I can say is Apple has stood behind the product entirely, and so yeah. And actually, I know of another PowerBook user that's having some problems separately. But again, I think what we're paying for is quality. It's not to say when you're building, you know, when you're trying to make things thinner and lighter, that there's not going to be issues. But the company that stands behind it is the company I care about. I happen to have purchased I needed to upgrade my 3-year-old laptop PC. And I was driving by Costco to buy some pretzels, and I saw a computer there, and sure enough, go to Costco for pretzels, you walk out with a computer. So I purchased an LG computer, and I immediately had to upgrade it because it was running Windows Home, and I needed enterprise level operating system version. And it is the trackpad. In doing that, I lost the trackpad drivers, and so the trackpad drivers are not readily available. It's been over a week and a half that LG doesn't yet know what the answer is. I have to use a mouse instead of a trackpad. And yes, when I had to give up my MacBook Pro for repair, it always wasn't the next day repair kind of thing. But ultimately, I'm still all about. I love the service that Apple is with regard to wait times if you need to call or whatever it is. So back to point, the keyboard I believe is a fine keyboard. I don't think the touch bar is changed my life in any way, shape, or form. I like the fingerprint sensor, but I don't think that that's relegated to just the touch bar people. Tell me, is it, Greg?
Not that I'm aware of. It's my understanding that they're going to incorporate that into just about everything at some point in time here.
But in the current version of the MacBook Pro, do only the touch bar people have the fingerprint?
At the moment.
Okay. Well, that's a neat thing The other stuff is interesting and cute, but I've not seen anybody really make great use of it. One or two companies, but it's kind of a ain't that cute kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I would have liked to have seen them add the touch bar row in on top of the function above the function keys. So you would have had the best of both worlds.
Okay, more keyboard though.
More keyboard.
Right. Yeah, no. So, anyways, I'm happy.
Unfortunately,
this happens at this point. This
taking advantage of that touch bar. That's the problem.
Right, and at this point, this model of the MacBook Pro is been superseded. There's a newer version, as we know, that came out, and I'm actually looking to, move on to the next one and sell this one. Normally, I keep a portable for 6-7 years, as it has been, without turnover. But for no particular reason, I'm just going to probably be moving on to the next one and check them out again.
Well, I'm hoping that come September. Well, probably September will be iPad, iPhone. We know that's pretty much what they do. And if they do anything on Mac laptops, it'll probably be October before they get too far into the selling season. So I'm kind of hoping that they'll, 14-core MacBook Pro or something goofy like that or whatever. But I'm kind of hoping that something out around the $3,000 price will come out, because I've certainly got my money's worth out of this laptop. Now, I'm sorry I sold my old MacBook. My old MacBook Pro was the 17-inch. I know, Robert, I think you had a 17-inch also, and I really like the bigger screen. But it's my understanding, or the rumor mill is, Apple is so into wanting to increase screen real estate versus bezel around the outside that they're probably going to put a effective 16-inch screen in a 15-inch laptop. That's the latest rumor that I've heard.
That's interesting, because the PC that was 3 years old that I was needing to move on from, the reason I needed a new one is that some programs I used required a higher resolution than my 3-year-old PC laptop could do, and so it was all about resolution. And so the LG that I purchased was a 17-inch LG, but it's not much bigger at all than my 15-inch MacBook Pro, because MacBook Pro has a worthy amount of bezel comparatively in this day and age, such that I could easily, if Apple went with a higher resolution monitor, I'd be all over it. So yeah.
So it was
interesting.
I'm sorry.
The software I was using 2 years ago, it didn't require a higher resolution, but in this day and age, a higher resolution allowed them to put more buttons on it, which is what I needed.
Yeah. Are they on floating windows? Palettes? The buttons?
No, it is in one interface pane.
Okay.
That they had multiple buttons, and each button expanded. And if you didn't have the resolution, you couldn't get the proper expansion within a button within a pane.
It wouldn't even do it, just be crappy to read?
They had a spec, a lowest minimal spec for resolution. That's what it was. I imagine there was probably other items as well, but it came to be where it wasn't acting the way I was described to act in the manual. And so I said to myself, what's going on here? And that's what traced it down.
Robert, are you at one of your customers? I recognize that heart symbol on the wall outside in the office there, but I can't remember where I recognize it from. Are you at a customer's?
Yes. This is a pediatric cardiology office that I'm working at the moment, putting in a couple of new servers.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It is fun, because these servers read echoes, which are echocardiograms, echoes. Right. And so we have doctors that are for Loma Linda, and they spend time there, and they do a lot of readings here. And so doctors at multiple locations have to be able to, because of HIPAA, come in securely and view different patients' echoes because of the urgency of time. The echoes might be done here, then be needed to be read by the doctors at Loma Linda, and back and forth. So a lot of fun. And it's pediatric cardiology, which is little kids. Sometimes it's neonatal. Sometimes it's they're still in the womb, and they're doing echoes of the hearts to identify defects and how they might.
They have a womb with a view?
Room with a view. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah. So it's very interesting, and then you get into when you have kids with heart issues, you get into a lot. There's a worthy percentage of kids with Down syndromes, which incorporates some heart issues and such. There's a lot of feel good from knowing that you're helping to make a better place for people that are hurting. You know, it's a whole lot about you want to be you kind of stuff.
Cool. Okay, anybody else got anything? Otherwise, I'll try to roll into what I was attempting to try to finish up what we did last month. All right. Well, let's do that. Hopefully everything will work. I've been playing a little bit with. Oh, for those of you who joined later, the email I sent out last week about the rescheduling of the meeting, I wanted to reaffirm again right now that Affinity Publisher, who also makes Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer, their version of their Photoshop clone, I'll use that word, and their Adobe Illustrator clone under their regime name. Publisher is their InDesign clone. It's going to be officially released probably in the next week or two. That right now you can still get a beta of it, and the beta is a full functioning beta. And in fact, I went to use it day before yesterday, and by golly, it said this beta's expired. Click here to download an update. And so I feel like about every 2 or 3 weeks they were coming out with an update. And I was doing something last night, which I'll show you in just a moment. And I've since written the guy back saying, this would be nice if there's a way for you to get in and do this. I thought it would be really cool for Mac users. I don't know how they would do it for the PC, because they release it both on the Mac and the PC at the same time. And if you buy it directly from Affinity, the software is going to sell for $50 for this major release, and that includes all updates unless they go to a major point release. But Photos has been around 2 years. They haven't done that. They just brought incremental things out. And right now, if you're either a beta user or if you get the pre-order in right now, you can get you can pre-order that software for $34. So that's a pretty good discount. That's a good 20% off right now, 25% off or whatever it is. And so far, I've been real happy with the products they brought out so far. And I'm hoping now they'll bring out a web-based product somewhere down the road, which would be my guess would be the next one that they would do. But I'm sure the market for it's not as strong as it would be for these. But I was really impressed to see that they've got one of the things I wanted. Well, let me just go in there and I'll show you. And since I usually leave my menu here over here at the right hand side of my screen, but I've lately been using my iPad to store like palettes and stuff like that on it, using Duet, which I really like. And what happens is that means that since I had my bar on the right, you're probably not seeing the whole thing. It looks like from what I'm doing here. So hang on, I'm going to stop that share and reshare it again. Can you guys tell me right now, can you see my, let me get my hand down here. I'm getting this may not be showing up the way I want to. Okay, can you see the publisher up there on the screen?
See a couple puppy dogs.
Oh, that's us. Let me move some of these palettes around here a little bit. Okay, so I've been playing a little bit with Publisher. I'm working on putting a little manual together that'll be of our Alaska trip. I'm only a year behind. I don't want to rush into this. And so in playing with Publisher, One of the things I noticed that, let me open up one of these I was looking at here earlier. There we go. This was I had done this one here, this price book, and the publisher will let you open up PDFs, and if you've done the PDF in the right way, you can, come on, Sparky, wait for it to get there. Oh, it's still loading it. So this is just a dummy cover markup that I've done so far on this. The picture down here at the bottom is my business card that I use, and so if you can look over here on the side, there's master pages. I've set up a couple of things, and I wrote the guy about this. By default, when you create a master page, and let me see if I can explain this to people in the publishing world. One of the things that lets you do is, if you're going to have something that's going to be repeating from one page to the next page to the next page to the next page, page numbers is a good example. Maybe a company logo or something like that. If you put that artwork or that text or that logo or guideline grids or guides or rulers or whatever on a master page, you can then apply that master to all your other pages, and you'll see that automatically. So there we go. So as an example, if I come down here, these are still taking a while to repaint. So let's get into some artwork. Here we go. So I'm actually opening up a PDF that I had made. I had made this originally in InDesign. Boy, this is really slow. Let me shut down a couple of things at the moment. So this is a PDF that I had made of this 60-page manual or whatever it was when I was working for Quickset. And I had pulled the artwork from, believe it or not, I pulled the artwork from off of our actual CAD program. I was able, back then on my Mac back then, I could tie into my Sun workstations, and I could open up the CAD program through an X window environment and manipulate the artwork if I wanted to. So I would rotate this around into an isometric view, capture that, bring it over, turn it into an EPS to smooth out all the lines and stuff. Holy mackerel, boy, are we slow. And then I would pull this artwork in. And then I made these tables all up in InDesign, the same thing with it. This is all based on previous stuff. But one of the nice things about if the PDF was a smart PDF where the text was still text, and if the artwork was done in something decently, even though this was done in Adobe Illustrator, I can open up the PDF itself inside this program and still manipulate it. Now, it's not the same, but the good thing is I could reconstruct the document literally by cutting and pasting, by pulling all the content out of this document and putting it into a brand new document, or just save this as a publisher document so that I can work with it in Publisher in the future. I'm going to get out of this. This is just too slow to work with. Okay, so here's a good example. Let's go to, I have nothing on this cover. Let's go to this master page here. And as you can see, the only thing I've got on here right now is just, is nothing. I don't have anything turned on right now. So let's drop down to this page, these pages here. And these images are all pulled off of, believe it or not, brochures, these here that I'm looking at. This is pulled off their website. So if I come in here and I take a look at that, you can see this is just a exploded view diagram of a top-down view of like my RV is. And so this is one of the few pictures I had taken of it at the time. And so like this page is going to be explaining that first thing you do with an RV. I'm going to have to go back and resize these because there's too crowded the way it is. But Marcia was taking measurements of crap she wanted to buy to put in here. We ended up putting up this particular model for whatever reason. One year they made it without a backsplash there next to the sink. So we bought one of those stick-on deals and did that. We added the towel rack and the paper towel holder. Underneath the sink, there was no place for a trash can. So my brother pulled this cover off here and made this dummy little shelf and mounted it in there. So now we can strap in a trash can and the coffee maker to use that space. This junk you see back here in the back is the water heater. Over here, this was the original handicap handle that my brother installed, but it wasn't designed for somebody my size, so it eventually broke. Not the mounts itself, but the guts inside the handle actually broke. They were pot metal, European design. I'll blame the Europeans on that. So when we got back from Alaska this last year, just around January, February timeframe, I told my brother, I said, I'd really like to see if we could modify this and put a true handicap handle in there, which we did. And eventually I'll put in other stuff. This cabinet that this is the side of here, this was for hanging more shirts and pants. I ain't that fancy. I roll my pants and shirts up because they take less space. That's why I tend to put them in that way. And what the hell, I'm camping. There's one small little wardrobe in the back that can hold, maybe a dozen shirts or something like that, that's reserved for Marcia stuff. If I had a dress shirt or a dress pair of pants, I'd put them back there if I wanted to. So I ended up building this little shelf because Marcia wanted an ice maker. So now I've got an ice maker and a separate drinking water filtration system that's gravity fed. This is a toaster. This is an Instapot. This is a toaster. As you can see, I'm just using it for just plain crap storage. A dust buster. There's a small broom back here. There's a couple of umbrellas. When we were traveling last year, when I had just been on my modified diet for a short time, and I was trying to figure out where to put the food. Well, each one of these boxes holds 24 meals. So there's 96 meals crammed inside here in these 4 boxes that are sitting. That's between the seats, underneath the couch. And then in the rear of my RV, you just barely see it back here in the back. Let's see. There's another couch. There's a second living area back here, an L-shaped couch. That is an ottoman that's right there. So I pulled I never use it as an ottoman. I use it as a desk occasionally. So it stored cushions for the ottoman inside that, but this is made to be a desk to use back there. So I found out I could get 72 meals if I crammed them in the right way inside that and shoved that back in there. So that way because it was easy to buy food everywhere we went, but you couldn't get these meals, and I couldn't arrange I had some stuff shipped to my nephew, but couldn't arrange to do it. And I've got to do a better picture here. But one of Marcia's big complaints was these 2 little dogs both want to ride in her lap every time we go somewhere. And she was really getting tired of that. She just couldn't see driving 10,000 miles with dogs in her lap the whole time. So I took one of their dog beds, velcroed it onto a small table, which as the previous owners of this RV had bought me a cocktail table. Yeah, like we don't even drink anymore. Cocktail table to sit in between the 2 seats when you spun them around. Velcro a dog bed up there, so now they ride up there with us and keeps them off her lap. So like one of the things, this is eventually gonna show pre-trip, and then here is take this out some more. These are just pictures randomly laid in here at the moment. I found it easier to do it this way, and I'll tell you why. These are pictures that were inside of Apple's Photos app, which I tend to use. I haven't done anything special to them, so they're not linked at the moment, but they will be. What I intend to do is I'll go through and I'll crop them all, but I was just trying to get an idea for spacing and I'm going to lay this thing out. This was something we did that was kind of different. At one of the places we were at, we took, let me move this picture down so you can see it. we still had like 19 or 20 RVs with us at the time, and the guys figured out playing with dominoes how to spell this out, and they had a drone fly up and take a picture of that. That's all of our RVs on that particular trip laid out, with all of us standing out here in front. And supposedly Leisure Travel is going to end up using that in one of their brochures. There's a picture I shot, one of the panorama shot with my iPhone as we were doing this. So that was kind of different. So I intend to lay this document out. So like one of the things that Janine had sent me, she goes, how do you do page numbers? Well, let's go back and look at this master page here. And the first thing I want to do is I want to insert a text box. So I'm going to come down here. Here we go. And I'm going to turn my margins on. And I'm going to zoom up on this in just a moment, but let's go ahead and get a box in there. I'm going to zoom up on this. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to look at document. And where are we at here? And now I'm going to forget where I'm at. Well, son of a gun, now my brain is not working. Boy, getting old sucks, doesn't it? Jeez. All right, well, if in doubt, look at help. And it just showed me where it was. So it's under the text insert field, of course. I should have remembered that. Now, this is essentially the same thing that InDesign did. It's just that it's laid out a little differently. But rather than just having a page number left justified, I think I actually want to put the word page in there. And then give it a space. And in this particular case, I can change the size of that if I want to. I can change it to a different font. I'll leave it for what it is now. But I want to copy this, and I want to put it over on the right-hand side as well. Of course, by default, whoops, I'm in the wrong spot. So this will be a spread. This will be an actual catalog that'll open up. And I want to put that over here, but I want it to be right justified. So I'm going to select the whole thing. And I'm going to make it right justified. And then I'm going to position it where I want to be. This is a half-inch margin right here, and this is the body. So that's where it's going to reside at. Now, if I come back and if I go into if I go down here and I look at this first page that's completed over here, I don't have anything. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say apply master, and I'm going to pick the master that's called contents. Oh, it's because I moved it. So it's bright. That means I took it off the other page. But you can see as I look down here at the bottom, now there's a page number there. And this will be on all my pages as I'm going down the road. And of course, I only applied it to the one page. I should have said all the pages. You can specify a range. You can do whatever you want to be able to get that information in. But did that answer your question, Jenny? I don't think you can hear me, can you? Or you can hear me, but you can't speak back? Guess not. So.
I heard you.
You did? Okay, well, that's good.
You were not on mute.
Okay, so I'm looking for an inexpensive. I mean, InDesign's like $600, $700, something like that, and unless you buy the Creative Suite, if you subscribe to the Creative Suite costs you, what is it, about $200 a year to have Photoshop, InDesign. No, it's more than that now. It's what, $50 a month, I guess it is. I guess if you're a student, you can get it for 30, and that gets you Photoshop, InDesign, and Adobe Designer, Adobe Illustrator for $600 a year, or if you're a student, $300 a year, something like that. Where these programs are $50 for each program, and there's 3 of them. So to me, that's quite a savings. It's just a question of getting used to whatever you want to do to be able to use it. This is one thing that isn't working right now. Is up here in the upper left-hand corner, there'll be a feature, and you can see if I click on it right now, it says it's not implemented, but supposedly in 2 weeks it will be. That if, as an example, I've got a piece of art, let's say that's a photo, I'd be able to come up here and I want to make some changes to it. Maybe I want to crop it down because I don't necessarily need this dead space over here to the left of that little dog, and make it bigger. I can crop it in this program because you get basic tools, and I can come over here and crop it here. All I've done is mask out that area that's there. So I haven't changed the image. I just masked what's being displayed. But if I wanted to lighten it or darken it and be a little bit more selective, like on the darker dog's face, her face is a little dark, so it would be good to go into a photo application and lighten this up a little bit so that she shows up a little bit more. I'll be able to come up here and click on the photo persona. And what that'll do is that'll take this image, put it into Affinity Photos, let me edit it, and then when I go back into Designer, it'll be updated automatically. So right now, I have to go into Affinity Photos separately or go back into Macintosh, Apple's Photos, make the changes there, export it as a separate file into like a holding folder or whatever it is, and then if I set these images up to be linked, it will relink automatically. But it's there's kind of an in-between step to be able to do that. What I've written the guy back saying, wouldn't it be nice if he had the ability to, when you go to place an object, like when you come on down here to place, and you get a dialog box, like you're going to go get artwork. And so here I am, I'm looking in this folder that's on my desktop. And this is one nice thing that you can do about Apple is that you can, anything that's displayable, you can take a look at it. So like as an example, if I come up, I'm going to use these logos somewhere. I use these logos down here in like my website. And so I can hit the space bar and I can actually scroll through this stuff, which is a nice touch. I think it would be nice if you had an option here to be able to click and get right into the Apple Photos library so that I wouldn't have to be maintaining 2 copies of it. It'd be really a slick feature. And I've written about that. Now, I don't know how Apple is about letting third party get into that, but they must, because there's third party utilities out there, including like a Photos Library Manager, which I have, which allows me to keep multiple photo libraries if I want to have one just for Marsha on my computer and just for me. And literally what it does is it swaps out the default name of photos into whichever library you've got, so that you can have 5 or 6 libraries all independent of each other, and you can drag stuff back and forth between the libraries if you want to. So Apple's letting them get into that. So I'm pretty sure that this guy would have that ability as well. That would be a really convenient feature that if you wanted to maintain. Well, a good example would be like, Bart, you use Lightroom. Is that where you maintain your photo libraries at?
Yeah, I keep them in Lightroom. Actually, what I do, I have a regular file system I've set up, and then I insert the Lightroom.
Right. So in their case, the files are all independent files out there. They're not inside one giant library like they were in Aperture or inside of Macintosh Photos. Correct?
Yeah, correct. However, if you're setting up Lightrooms from from scratch, you don't have a Lightroom library that's existing. It's a lot of people will argue that it's better to just set up one master Lightroom file and have all of your sub-files under that.
So they're not really they're not really available as separate files without opening up the contents of a database, right? You can't see them normally.
See what happened. I set my Lightroom files up before I really understood Lightroom and how to use it. And so I'm sort of stuck with that part of it. So, I've sort of adapted to be able to use it efficiently.
Well, that is one of the drawbacks to using a database program. Let me hide this right now. So like if I come over here and I go to Finder and I go to Home, and let's look at an icon view so it makes more sense for most people. And if I want to see where my photos, what used to be called iPhoto or my photos library is, it's in my home directory in a pictures folder.
Hello.
Hey, there you are.
Finally got it figured out.
And there's my photos library on this Macintosh. As you can see, that's 80 gig worth of photos sitting in there right now. And so the problem is I can't get access to those except through Macintosh or one of these approved programs that can go in there and look at it. Now, yes, I can always do the poor man's method, which is show package content. You don't want to get into this. This becomes more of a hassle. And as you get in here, you'll find things like resources, and it's in here somewhere. Media, here we go. And you can see the naming convention means nothing. Here's the images. Here's the files all the way down here, and they're still openable from here, but including movies or whatever it is. But it's not real convenient. So if you're using a normal file structure where you've got a file folder and folder and folder and folder and folder, and you can do that inside of Photos or inside of Aperture, which Aperture is disappearing, obviously. Then you'd see a structure like this, and the names would carry over. These names mean nothing. They're just for the database to be able to track them down. So consequently, what I end up doing is I end up having to. What I end up doing is, let me hide the others, is I go into Photos.
Hey, Greg, I want to interrupt you for a second. Could you please mute the other people?
Yeah, sure.
I'm hearing people eating and moving around and stuff. Thanks.
No problem.
Stuart doesn't want to do that. I've asked him a couple times. And he smiles.
If you need to talk or ask a question, all right, now we're inside of Photos. So let's say, as an example, I want to rob this image here. Basically, this is a variation. I have no direct, I mean, I can edit it right here and do whatever I want to. But let's say, as an example, I want to use this image inside of that program. I've got to come up here to File. Come on. And I'll just take all the defaults. I'm using them in maximum quality, but in large format, not maximum format. And I'm going to export it. And I'll go ahead and put it on my desktop so that it's easier to find. It doesn't get mixed up with that for everything else. And I'll take the default name. Not going to worry about it. There, I just got the message that it's there. So I'm going to go ahead and quit out of Photos. And now when I go look, here's that file that I just exported. Well, now I've got this. Now I've got this in two different spots. I've got a version of it sitting inside my Photos library, and a version that I'm going to use for this program. So when I go back to this program, and this is true in InDesign or anything else, if I want to, I'm going to cram a photo right there. Let's say as an example, I'm going to go over here to either place photo here or up here. I come on down to place, and you can say do a Command Shift M. That would do. It's not as convenient as InDesign was Command Shift D. But you can always use a keyboard utility to change that around. But there is an icon there to be able to do that. And now it's going to give me a dialog box. I'm going to back up one level to desktop. And again, I can verify if that's the image I want to see. Because if I use larger icons, I'd be able to see it. Let's say, okay, I'm going to take that. And that's loaded it into this icon, ready to be placed. And there it is. I'm going to size that down real quick and easy. I haven't made the file any smaller, physically display-wise, but not resolution-wise. So at the moment, this can be, I can't remember how I set this up or not. Under Resource Manager. Yeah, they're all linked. Okay, so here's an interesting thing you're going. If you're going to do a one-pager and you're going to send it to somebody, you have the option when you build a document to embed all the artwork inside the document, which of course could make it huge. These are all, let's say, what are they? Original DPI doesn't show the resolution on that page there, but they're all roughly, let's say, 4 meg in size. So if I had 20 pictures in a page, and even though they're big enough to maybe make an 11 by 14 or so image quality wise, I wanted to, unless I manually resize them down on my photo application, let's say 300 dots per inch at 2 inches by 3 inches, something like that, I'd be putting the entire 4 meg image into this document. Now, it only displays what it needs to display. But now, if these images are embedded and I had 20 of them in there, man, I've got what, 80 megs worth of artwork on a one-page document that if I send to somebody could easily choke up the file transmission or whatever as I'm giving it to them. It could easily fill up a stick if you had multiple pages like a price book or something like that. So one of the options that several companies have come up with is so that you don't have to maintain the old days, the old PageMaker days and first versions of InDesign. What you did is you figured out, okay, the image is going to be 2 by 3 inches when it's used, and I want it to be 300 DPI. So you would go into your photo editing program, you'd save a version of that file into a new location for the document that you were working at, and you would specify, I don't want it to be any bigger than 300 DPI, 2 by 3 inches. And it would size the file down. Now you got 2 versions of the file. You got your original and you got the size down one. And you would place the reduced file size one inside your document to keep the document small. And also, if you wrote that document to a floppy, remember those, or to a solid state drive or a zip drive or a jazz drive or something like that, you were giving them the document with all the artwork contained in it. But the problem is that adds an extra step in your process. So Adobe came up with, I don't know if it was them that thought of it, they came up with the idea of what's called embedded link. And you can see that with the Resource Manager. When you create a brand new document, you get the option of making it linked or unlinked. And you can see you can always come back and change it later. If I decide I want this image here to be embedded, all I got to do is click that. And now what it's just done is it's just taken that full 1.5 meg file, regardless of what size I'm using it at, and crammed it inside this document. But if I want to, I can go back and say, make it linked again. And now it's taken that image back out. The image is still there on my display, but it's taken the image back out. So only the size necessary is used. So what happens is now when you go to save this file off, if these only need to be 300 DPI rather than 3000 DPI at this size, the program sizes them all down for the document. They're not embedded at that resolution, they're linked. And then what you would normally do is you would send over those image files separately. So the advantage is twofold. You've still got your original image, that's good. You've still got a maintaining a link. So if whoever I'm sending this to decides, I'm not going to print them on a 300 DPI printer, I want to print them on a 600 DPI printer, there's enough data in there for him to be able to use it to have the higher quality, even though you didn't put it that size in there, because they're linked back to the original files that you sent over there with him. But it also has the ability that if I go into, in the older days, I was using Photoshop. If I went into Affinity Photos and made a change to this and either chopped it or lightened it up or darkened it or did some erasing, maybe I wanted to erase this junk over here so that it wouldn't be adding or take out, blank out this window so you wouldn't be seen out into the parking lot or whatever it happens to be. Since that image is linked into my final document, when I open up the final document and I update the links, in most cases it'll do it automatically when you open it up, your new document now has the latest, greatest version that exists. I don't have to go back and replace those over. That makes sense to everybody what I'm saying? I got y'all muted, so I really can't tell. So that's the advantage of that. And they have this resource manager. Actually, Adobe's got something very similar to it. They've got this resource manager that shows you all the artwork that you've placed, artwork, or if you've pulled text files, or if they were some other kind of file, regardless of what they are. You can see that they're not taking up inside the document. They're not taking up any size. They're linked. But as soon as I embed that, and it's showing what resolution I brought them in at here. Now I've added 1.4 megabyte into my document, which before it was just a link pointing back to that document. So that's a really nice feature that you can break the link if you need to, if you want to make a change to it or not, or keep it simple. So I can embed everything at the last minute if I want to. I can come down here and I can replace this image here, which we've selected. There it is. And let's say I want to replace that image with what's this one here? I want to put some, yeah, that's good enough. Let's use that with this image. It did it all by itself. So the nice thing is you can put in lower res or older versions of items into your brochure or your page or your document or whatever you're doing, go back and change them after the fact to something totally different. And you didn't have to go back through the process. It automatically makes them fit that same space over again. All right.
Press mode to scroll through the various byte functions.
Hang on.
You can access the trip time, the average and maximum speed.
So who do we figure out that was doing that, Glenn? Did you figure out who it was? Was it Stuart? No, it's not Stuart. So somebody is I'm gonna unmute you individually.
It's all fixed now. Thank you.
It is, okay. All right. Hi Bonnie, nice to see you. Okay, everybody should be able to talk again, except maybe Bart. Maybe I turn him back on too. Oh, he's muted at his side. All right, was there any questions? I mean, that's just real simple. I'm going to learn more as I play with it, and as I get farther down the road, I'll go back into a couple other steps or whatever it is. But I just wanted to give you another little brief taste on how I'm playing with this. Like I said, haven't got a legit version. Hopefully by next month, well, I will. In 2 weeks, we'll have a legit version. So did that make sense, Janine, when I was showing how the page number thing works?
Yeah, it's very much like PageMaker and
PageMaker and InDesign, the same
yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
The menus are just, but their online documentation is amazing. Their help, and you can get access to their tutorials. And the cool thing is, when I was over there looking last night just to see what else is there, he's got maybe 20 or 30 tutorials himself on real short things. I was trying to figure out how to do a gradient in this program. And I went and did it back in InDesign. In fact, you can see that on that cover page. I wanted to try to pick the blue of the card. I haven't got it quite yet, and make it a gradient going all the way up to the top, so that it looks like it blends in with the picture.
Are you talking about photo, or are you talking about importing this into another program or whatever you're using?
Right. What I had done is on that cover page of that document that I'm working on,
right.
I had my business card just enlarged there, but I had all that dead white space up above where I wanted to put the Alaska trip kind of thing, the Alaska caravan trip or whatever. but I wanted to use that same blue background. So I could sample that blue. I opened it up inside of Photoshop. I sampled that blue and made a gradient so that when I get done with it, it'll match where the top of my business card artwork stops on,
Right.
and the gradient starts. They'll be the same shade of blue, and then it'll go back up to a lighter color at the top.
You
So
said Photoshop. Do you mean photo?
I meant photos. Yeah, of course I have it. What can I tell you?
Okay.
Photo sounds too much like Mac photos, so it's hard to try to keep them. I have to get in the habit of saying the word Affinity out in front.
Yeah.
But that way I'll be able to, because I'm going to put the club's logo in there, and then our Alaska logo that Leisure Travel made for us. I'm going to put those up, and they'll eventually be repeated at the bottom of that document down there where the page number's at. They'll be at the opposite corners of the page numbers.
So you're going to put it into master?
Into one of the masters, that's right. And you can have as many masters as many pages as you want.
Right.
And you can always change them at a later time. So like usually I'll make a cover master, or just say master none, and because that's unique to itself. But then it depends on space wise if I need to use that space, or you are wasting the inside of that cover. You might as well print on it if you're trying to cut down on paper. So if for whatever reason the document I'm building runs one page over, then I'll usually let that roll to the inside cover at the back. And if it needs to be 2 pages over or 3 pages over, I'll actually put an extra page in there, make up a dummy one that says notes, and just put some lines down there. So as a filler to get, because it's got to come out in even numbers, obviously, for a booklet. For the spread when it opens up. So if I've got 77 pages worth of data that's going to go into an 80-page booklet counting the cover. Forget the cover. I need to end up with one extra page in order to be able to come out in evens of 4, front, back, left, and right. So what I'll do is I'll make one of those pages either in the middle if I want the spacing to come out properly. Like you'll find sometimes as you're looking inside of textbooks or whatever it is, they like to have a new section start on the right-hand side,
yes,
rather than on the left-hand side.
Yes.
So if they've got a dead space on the left-hand side, most of the time they'll put a little note down at the bottom that says this page left intentionally blank. It's only being done. They don't want to waste that printing, but it's only being done to make it look better. That's all. It's the only reason for it. I stopped doing that years ago, and I started putting in a general. I actually would make myself up a dummy art, and it would say notes, and then I would just have some thin scroll lines across it. And so, like if I went to, like in the case of Quickset, if I went from their knobs section of the book to their levers section of the book, and it didn't end up on an odd page, which is where I want it to end, then that page opposite the new section would be one of those notes pages, those dummy notes pages, rather than having this page left intentionally blank. Or maybe I put some company history, or I'd do something like that, something that's filler, so that I don't have to ruin the nice layout that I've got.
Speaking of layout, then, I'm assuming then that on your computer screen, you can look at side by side, or you have the option of single pages down?
Yes, you can do that.
Okay.
I'm just so used to it because, and you can also do, this is kind of nice. Now, InDesign may do this now because I haven't used InDesign for a couple of years, but you can hide stuff that rolls off the edge of the page, or you can show. In other words, you can show bleed. So if I've got a photograph or a logo or whatever it is, and I don't necessarily need the right-hand logo, I can see where it's going to supposedly be cut off. Of course, it depends on how accurate their trimming job is. So you have to kind of bear that in mind too. So like in most cases, if you're going to end up with an 11-page, if you're going to end up with an 8.5 by 11 booklet, that's a better way of saying it. If I'm going to end up with an 8.5 by 11 booklet, then the book, your pages are actually going to be 8.5 by 11, so you're actually looking at 11 by 17, right? 11 high by 17 wide. But your overall, if you're going to print with stuff running all the way to the very edge, which of course costs more, they have to print it on an oversized piece of paper and then trim it back. So that's how they get that. That's why you'll find most books and stuff like that rarely run anything all the way to the very edge, because it's easier for the paper feed and stuff like that to not bleed off the edge. Otherwise, you have to print on oversized paper and then restitch it back down again. So,
but you can just set your margins, can't you? I mean,
you can set your margins. That's why I do. Almost every home printer made today will print within about 2/10 of an inch, something like that, or a quarter of an inch. I just figure a quarter of an inch. So I give myself a quarter of an inch at least. If I'm going to do a regular book, I found out if I'm going to do like a price book or something like that, I found out over the years that people's thumbs tend to be up there in those white areas. So I now give a half an inch all the way around and maybe 3/4 of an inch at the bottom so that I can leave a little room for notes or appendice information or something like that. You might, if you built a book and you can't go back and fix it, you might have an errata page, you know what I'm talking about. Pages where they screwed up when they put the book together. So now they got a page of fixes at the very back, and they'll just put a little note down there at the bottom that says, see page such and such, or see errata or appendix or whatever the hell happens to be. I'll usually leave myself about 3/4 of an inch down at the bottom rather than a half an inch, just so I have that breathing space.
Okay, thanks.
Make sense?
Yep, got it.
Anybody else got anything?
Yeah, an easy question.
Yeah.
I came in late. What is the name of this entire venture, this entire program?
That we were talking about?
Yeah.
It's from a company called Affinity, which I think is German. I'm not sure, or British. It's overseas somewhere. And this is their third product that they're going to release here in a couple of weeks. The first one was Affinity Photos, and I did a demo on that about a year and a half back. It's a Photoshop clone basically, or it's a Pixelmator clone or a GIMP clone or whatever. It's a Photoshop. It's a photo editing program. And then they brought out a vector-based drawing program like Adobe Illustrator, which they call Designer. And now they're in the process of releasing a publishing program similar to like what Adobe used to have PageMaker, and then they rolled it into InDesign. Quark has Quark Express. Ready, Set, Go was another one. Microsoft had Microsoft Publisher. I don't even know if that's available anymore. These people are bringing out their program called Publisher, which, as close as I can say, it's a clone of Adobe's InDesign. The big benefit they got going, Bonnie, is rather than being forced into buying a subscription model where you're paying $600 or $300 a year or whatever for software that you may or may not always be using. The problem with me is I didn't mind spending the subscription money so much when I could write it off for either business or for work, or I could get my company QuickSet or when I was working for Broadcom, I could get them to pay for some of it because I was doing these side jobs for them. I didn't mind that so much. But when I get to where I'm only using something like Photoshop or Illustrator once or twice a year, the idea of spending $150 a year, whether I need that feature or not, bothered me. So when you used to outright buy the software and you'd pay $150 or $200 for the you'd spend $600 maybe for the initial program, and then every year they'd come out with $100 or $150 or $200 upgrade. I would look and see what features am I getting on this version of Photoshop 5 versus Photoshop 6. And if I don't need a feature in Photoshop 6, what do I need to upgrade Photoshop 5 for? And maybe it would be Photoshop 7 when that rolled around and said, wow, now I'm not only getting the features of Photoshop 6, but now I'm getting these extra features that Photoshop 7 has. I could pay the upgrade because it never made sense to me that if you bought a version of a program and now there's 7 versions down the road, and you paid for every upgrade in between, you didn't get a better break on that last one than every guy who just went out there and bought it one time. That always bothered me because you were the quote loyal customer, or maybe I should say sucker. Maybe that's a better word. But I found myself skipping about every other version unless it gave me something that I either could use right now or needed down the road. Now you don't have that choice. You either go back and find older versions, which a lot of times aren't compatible with the hardware, as we all know, or you subscribe to it. I mean, Microsoft's done that. They've got workarounds in some cases. You can get like a student version or whatever, but it's still a subscription service for something I may or may not use a lot. So I was kind of forcing myself to either use GIMP, it's a graphic image manipulation program, great name, great acronym, or I would use Pixelmator and spend, or Acorn was another one, and they were like in the $30 to $40 price range. Well, now Pixelmator is being phased out, if it's not already gone, because Google Photos has its own version that you can do online, which I think more and more stuff's probably going to go that way. I wanted something I'm not the most comfortable with applications that are online or data that's only available online, because if I'm somewhere where I haven't got network connectivity, I'm screwed. Nothing works.
Yeah.
And that kind of bothers me. So instead, I want online to be available resources, not something that's a required resource. And I want the resources to be with me, either on an external drive or, I mean, I have that problem with Apple right now, backing up your documents and your desktop to the cloud. Yes, there's a version kept here on the computer. It's kind of clumsy the way they do it, but that kind of worries me a little bit. And then you have to download it if you haven't got it. Well, I just periodically go through and download it and archive it somewhere else, just in case, even though I've got my own home backups here.
Yeah.
Just because I'm a little worried that that's going to happen. I knew what it was like years ago when I had to work off of networks. And luckily that's all improved. So I find it more comfortable for me in my situation now. Buy the program up front and don't force me to buy it on a yearly basis. And I'll buy it when I need it, when I need a newer version of it.
Me too.
So these people brought out Affinity Photos for $50. Affinity Designer, their Illustrator type program, for $50. And now Publisher is going to be available in like another week or so for $50. But right now, you can go to Affinity's website. You can't do it through the App Store yet. The first two are available through the App Store, but you get a better deal, and you'll be able to update them that way. But right now, it's a better deal if you buy it directly from Affinity, because you can download the beta right now of Publisher. It's a full working beta. You can download the version, and at that page, you get the option to pre-order a legit version of. I'm sure they'll keep the free trial. They've got free trials on their other programs. They're usually good for about 30 days. You can pre-purchase a full version when it comes out in 2 weeks of Publisher for $34. That's a hell of a discount off of 50. You know, that's 30% or whatever it is. And I noticed this morning that you can now get Designer and Photos right now. They've got a deal on them as well. What do you got going, Glenn? You're muted still.
So
you wanted to say, Glenn? Go ahead. Sorry.
I think you're recording this particular. You're recording this meeting, right?
Yeah.
Did you or did someone go through the Affinity photo? I don't know what they call it, but it's the Photoshop like.
Yeah, there's one you can go back and you can look up at YouTube under OACC meetings.
Okay.
And I put them by date, but then I put and I broke them rather than having 3 hours of just us all BSing like we do all the time, because we're just so happy that we're still breathing. Is when I start talking about this segment or this segment or this segment, you can just look at that 1 hour long segment or hour and a half long segment or whatever it is. See it.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. So anyway, that's just, I just wanted to, I ran across this, I forget where I ran across their first program, and I'm real happy with the first two. I don't mind spending $50 that maybe I only have to spend every 2 or 3 years, not every year.
Well,
I don't think Jim is talking to us again. I guess we need to have a great big message that pops up on their screen. Mute me, ding dong, something like that. So, anybody have any other issues or questions that we can talk about?
No, just one thing. You indicated you didn't know if Publisher was still made, Microsoft Publisher.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah,
I think
I know it is. I know it is made because my wife uses it a lot in her work, and they're still upgrading it and everything else.
Well, like one of the programs, I mean, years ago I used to work with. All right, now who's that talking? Oh, that's Bonnie. I'm going to mute you temporarily, Bonnie. One of the other programs that I used to use a lot when I was doing it was, I guess way back when it was called Macromedia, but it ended up becoming Macromind, and it used their web-based program. I'm not into HTML. I can read it and I can code it, but I can't code it efficiently. So I'll do one thing to fix something, and that's all I care about. I just want to fix it. I want to move on with my life. And so I've used 3 or 4 web-based programs over the years because I never did enough web stuff that was more than 20 or 30 pages, and it was real simple stuff. And when Apple came out with iWeb, I was very impressed. There were some limitations, but there were some third-party people that came up with ways of solving some of those limitations, like getting drop-down and pop-out menus. I bought a program that was a plugin that allowed me to be able to do that on iWeb. And iWeb stopped working effectively about 5 versions back. Mavericks was the last version that worked worth a damn. So for a long time, to maintain the 2 or 3 websites that I still maintained with iWeb, is I had a solid state drive or another spinning hard drive. I plug it into the Mac, boot up to that drive that had Mavericks on it, do whatever I want. Of course, I had to plan ahead, do whatever I wanted and copy everything over onto that drive so I had it available. Once I had it published, then I could get out, because what the hell, I was doing it once a month for an hour. It was no big deal. And I just couldn't see teaching myself a whole new program or spending a lot of time with a program that was convoluted to get something simple done. That's, you know, Macs are based on simplicity, but functionality. And I tried a couple other ones. I tried RapidWeaver. Dreamweaver was the program I was trying to think of that Adobe has. Dreamweaver is a great program, but it's clunky, I think. And iWeb was simple for people who just wanted to, for simpletons like myself, who just wanted to get quick and easy things done. So I played a little bit with RapidWeaver. I bought that at one time, and it was okay. But I ran across one called EverWeb. And you can see they all got the name web or whatever in it because they're sort of like variations of what iWeb was. So I downloaded their trial, and I played with it, and I've done one website with it so far, which I'm in the process of making changes to it. And I'll give you a quick example of what that's like. Let me hide this right now. Even the icon's simple looking. Even the icon is simple looking. This program is reasonable. It's about $50, something like that. And so here's what their interface looks like. I got the size for a different size screen. There we go. Now we got it all crammed to fit in here. So like I'm looking at right now, it's laid out almost identical to what iWeb was. So these are going to be drop-down menus. That's built in. Like you can see, there it is: Group Rallies, Marshals, Greg's Photos. There needs to be one up here for photos. RV upgrades that I've done. This is about Marcia Knight. So I'm going to go real quick over here and show you what this looks like on the site. I couldn't have got a word of your name, could I? There was a logic behind that. Is if I start publishing some of these videos like the other YouTube people are, I've actually gotten a couple of freebies because I've mentioned them, and I think I might be able to get more freebies. Now here's a good example of creativity. I put this together before I had this motorhome. That's off of one of their brochures. I just grabbed that picture off of one of their brochures. This is one of my pictures of the entrance to Bryce Canyon up in Utah. So I used that as a background. I brought this in, drew a frame around it, all the way around it, so that I could mask out everything else because I didn't have access to the original artwork. Faked the shadow underneath the RV, cut out an opening in it, and faked a piece of the artwork to bleed through that opening so that it looks like it's not great, but it got me by. And remember, I didn't have, because mine's now got a dome antenna back, a satellite dome antenna back here on the back. Then I crammed this picture of Marcia and me on it. And this is actually what the front of our card looks like. And then when it's got my cell phone on the backside. And so when you go to this homepage, there's a quick, brief explanation of us. And when we first started, Marcia's idea of camping was no room service. So the first time I took her camping, we were in a tent. Well, that lasted like twice. And then she said she got tired of getting up off the floor, off the dirt, off the ground. So we went out, we bought a tent trailer. We used this for about 10 years and towed it behind my Pontiac minivan, and it was great. But when I had my leg amputated, I went one time camping out to Quartzsite in January. So the weather was lovely. It got down to about 40 at night. And we had 2 heaters inside the thing, 2 gas heaters running the whole time. But it worked good. And I wanted to go somewhere where my mom and dad were at, so that in case I had an issue with a prosthetic leg, putting this back together, I could have my dad to help me, because there's braces that come off these corners here to stabilize the unit. So after those 4 days out there at Quartzsite, my folks were going on to Havasu to visit some friends. My dad said, "Well, what can I help you pack up?" And I said, "Nothing, Dad. I got to do it myself. If I can't do it, then I'll ask for help." We got it all folded, because we used to use this a lot. We used to go 5 or 6 times a year, weekends or whatever. We got this all folded up, got it all packed away, got everything back in the van or whatever. He said, "Well, you did it, but I think it's time for you to think about something. You take a key, put it into the ignition, and turn it." The following week, we went out and bought our first motorhome, which was this one. Another Canadian brand, and similar to what we have now. It's called, they now call them a Class B plus. But it's,
well, that's what needs to get done.
Hey, can you mute yourself? We're hearing you. Hang on. Sorry about that. Unmute yourself if you want to ask questions or whatever it is. So this was our second one. We had this for about a year and a half. It was reasonably priced. It was around 56 grand. Believe it or not, we traded in an Infinity Q45 towards it. And we went up to Washington a couple of times, Oregon. We had it for about a year and a half, 2 years. It had 2 major drawbacks. No storage on the outside at all, nothing. It had one little cupboard right here, and inside, and that cupboard was actually a cupboard to the inside or the outside. And it did have a rack on the back, so we had hooks on the back, and we carried all kinds of extra junk. I had a portable table that my dad and I had built a frame for to carry it back there, behind the spare tire, and our chairs and all that kind of stuff. And basically, this carried like your sewer hose and maybe one instant, one of those phony wood logs or whatever. But inside the sleeping accommodations were a dinette, which Marsh could just barely fit on, and what they called a jackknife bed. And the jackknife bed turned out to be like a small double or a big twin. So we ended up with basically sleeping bags. She slept on the dinette, and I slept on the jackknife bed, which was a couch. And we found there was no slide out, and we found that after a couple of nights driving and stopping, we could make up the jackknife couch. You basically lift it up and you just throw the sleeping bag on top of it. We ended up leaving the dinette set as a bed all the time because it was just a hassle. And we eat all of our meals outside, or we had a little folding tray table. We'd sit at the couch. This thing had a 12-inch TV in it. We went through 4 of them till they figured out what the electrical problem was on that. So it was in the shop, and the real problem was you couldn't put gas in it. For some reason, these idiots, when they had bought the truck from Ford, 350, I think it is, Ford 350, they had modified the gas tank and the gas inlet. You'd go to put gas in it, and the cutoff valve would pop off right away. So took it back 2 or 3 times. They couldn't figure out. I found out that if I put the handle in the gas tank and then turned it upside down and held it manually, I could put gas into it. Well, that was a thrill. So we came back from a 2-week trip, and we decided this was too small. So the following 6 months or so, we ended up trading that one in, and we bought this thing. We went from 21 foot to 31 foot. This is a Class A gas. It went from 13 miles to a gallon down to 8 miles to a gallon. That was a little bit of a shock. You can see I towed my Honda behind it, but this is all storage out here underneath. And unfortunately, I carried everything. We carried a vacuum cleaner for 10 years, never used it. We always used the broom. The broom was easier than having to go outside and get the vacuum cleaner. You could sleep underneath, and a couple of these, they were pass-throughs all the way to the other side. You could sleep in it. But it got to the point where I was having a problem keeping it here on my property. The association was giving me hell. And I decided I had to do something about it. So we sold it because we just weren't using it. And then after I retired, I started getting the bug to want an RV again. And the first thing Marcia said was, I drove the Class C that we had. If we get another one, I want something that I can drive. This one was too big for her. She was very intimidated by that. So we found this one, watched all the videos, decided this was the brand we were going to buy, another Canadian brand. It was on a Mercedes chassis. We found one used, couldn't find them. They only make about 60 a month. So the waiting list was like 10 months. And I said, I'm happy if I can get a 2015 or later because I wanted the later style electronics in it. We found one in Vermont. We flew to Vermont, bought it from the people, and drove it back home. And the damn thing gets around 17 to 18 miles a gallon. Even towing the car, I get around 15. And the dogs ride in it. It's got one slide out on it. And so I even gave plug to Unity and made a page up in here so that you can see their videos. They're all here. This is a particular year that we bought it. And then taking a factory tour, that kind of crap. This was all done in this program. And then this drop-down menu here was for club rallies. And we meet every January, February timeframe at Pachanga because we can now use our Passport America and get in for $22 a night, which is hard to beat. And there's like 50 or 60. There was 81 of us this year during the rain, just rained constantly. Then Leisure had get together in Vegas in April of last year, and we went to that. And then this was some of the changes that I did for upgrades. Like here's a color version of that picture you saw. And this was my brother installing the handle. This is where we ended up putting the handle. But if you've ever seen an RV, the walls are like 1/8 of an inch thick. They're trying to keep the weight down. But there's a TV mounted just to the left of that inside this wardrobe cabinet. So my brother pulled the backing of the TV off, and he could see these wires, and he could see these 1x2 frames or whatever that they had here. So he crammed, believe it or not, in this piece of wood right here. It's hardwood. It's like a piece of oak or something like that that he had scrapped. Crammed it in between, and then put washers like 3-inch size washers so that straddled across all 3 pieces of wood, and mounted this extra handle that we bought from Leisure Travel to match the entrance handle, and that gave me a pretty good handle for about 3 months. But the handle was never made to be used to pull somebody in. Because before I had this handle, I was actually getting, now this is before I lost 100 pounds too. I was always getting in from the driver's side in the cab area and walking back. It was just easier. Then I learned how I could do it with my cane, put my cane on the step to help push me up. So this finally ended up breaking down here at the bottom. So from the whole trip of Alaska, we didn't have use for it. And that's why I've actually got a true handicap handle in there now with enough wood, with a 3/4 inch plywood on the back it'll never come out. The next guy gets it with that handle. And then here was the kitchen modification that we had done. Never enough storage, as I called it, because there just isn't. You can see it's not a lot of counter space to work with, and there's no trash can. By the way, the previous owners of this RV, this is an L-shaped couch here in the back. That's the ottoman that stores back in here. They had Leisure modify this section with a shelf that pulls out, and they'd pull out the ottoman, shove the ottoman here, pull out that shelf, and they had Leisure, who makes their own furniture, make 2 more cushions so you've got an extra bed back there in the rear. Never used it. Got it. May try it this year. We may see. Who knows? Because if 2 of you are sick, it's tough for 1 person to sleep on the couch by itself. And let's see. And then I had a little blurb about Marcia and I. Well, this hasn't been updated for a long time, so here's the 2 mutts that travel with us. And so this was something, I put this website together. You can see the little pictures that I had robbed so that they could click on this. These have got links. In fact, you can see that showing the link down there in the lower corner as you bring it over. This was something after I figured out how to use EverWeb. I put this together in about 2 hours, I guess. I spent more time trying to figure out what pictures to use than anything else. And so it's real easy to use. It's real easy to update. It has a lot of functionality if you're looking for a cheap and expensive web-based program to use. You probably can't get any simpler than EverWeb. And for me, that works out extremely well. Okay, let me stop the share.
Greg, I got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we've discussed this before, but with this EverWeb, maybe talk in the context of that. If you recall, I have a website that I haven't been able to upgrade for over 10 years when I switched from PC to Mac.
Okay.
And when I switched from PC to Mac, the reason I couldn't upgrade it was because the software I used to make the website
only worked on a PC.
Was not available for Mac.
Right.
So I invested in Dreamweaver, which was pretty damn expensive.
Yeah, it's like $600 in the old days to buy it.
And I tried everything, and I finally determined that there was no way to basically convert things or pull my old website into Dreamweaver and make it so that Dreamweaver could modify it, even though the entire site was done in HTML using this old, originally the site started, I wrote it in HTML. It was a very simple site originally. And then I bought the off-the-shelf stuff, which was basically fancy HTML editor. You didn't have to look at the code, but
right.
You could basically drag and drop and stuff like that. Ever since I switched, as I say, I haven't been able to update my site, which is ridiculous. Would this thing be able to pull my existing site into it and allow me to update it and so forth without actually, everything else I could, of course, start all over again, building a site from scratch and something else. But that's what I've been trying to avoid. I don't want to go to that extreme. Would this be able to take my existing site and just allow me to modify it?
I doubt it, because every one I've ever tried, it looks like you had to start from scratch. Every one. Now, almost all of them have and you can do that with any kind of a transfer pro. I mean, I use Transit, which is an FTP program, and I can get into the website as long as I got the password. I can get into the website and let's say I can't find the artwork. If I lost all my artwork for this, which I've made that mistake in the past and had to go back and get it off of Carbonite. I no longer use Carbonite, but get it that way. I could use you don't have to buy an FTP program because it's built into the Mac operating system to be able to do that. But so you could always open up a terminal window and you could always FTP directly to the site that you want to go to, put in the name and password, CD down to the correct directory, and FTP all the content that's there at that site and get a local copy of it if you didn't already have a copy of it. So I have made that mistake in the past with sites where I lost stuff. At least I could have the same quality resolution that was being used at the site. But it's been my experience that what you're talking about, none of these inexpensive programs will do it. Even like you said, even Dreamweaver, they all do their own way of laying it. And since they're trying to build them from a graphical standpoint, nothing seems to interact with anything else unless you buy a program that was cross-platform. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, to
me, it would be easier. In your case, it would almost be easier because you got the two big screens to bring up the one site on one screen and literally a program like this. I don't think I'd get anything fancy. A program like this, go to create your home page and literally drag the content from the site, which it'll clip it, the Mac will clip it to the desktop, and drag it right on. You'd be maintaining the same resolution and everything like that, and replace and do it that way. I would think it'd be simpler.
That makes a heck of a lot of sense. Gee,
I mean, you could do
another use for my split screen.
There you go. I mean, you could do it. You could do it on a single Mac, and you don't have both applications side by side. But you got the two giant screens. You could literally. I mean, I did that. Quickset, when I was working for Quickset, they had an interesting requirement. The company, corporate-wise, owned Quickset.com, and there was nothing we could do. But the Anaheim branch wanted people to be able to go to Quickset.com, but wanted people to be able to put specials or deals or something that we were going to create. This was a marketing guy. Our local marketing people thought this up. It was a great idea. And I tried to convince Quickset Corporate to let me have access to their site to do this. And what I wanted to do was there'd be a page that would be click on or it would read your zip code and find the closest closest Konica Minolta. That's what I meant. Konica Minolta dealership, because there's 7 here in Southern California. And so I thought, well, it'd be great if it would read your zip code and say, the closest one to you is located here. Is that the one you want? It would automatically be that. And then there'd be I'd have a preference and that'd be the one you'd always get. So my boss gave me a challenge and he said, what's up? Are you talking to me, Frank?
I wanted to make a mention to Bart, because I just talked to my son about his problem. He said that there is a program out there called Sublime Text. It works both on Mac and PC for web design.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He said if he hasn't tried that or heard of it, try that, because that's what he uses.
I knew there had to be something out there.
So
that was Sublime Text?
Sublime Text.
T-E-X-T, I believe. Is that it, Trav? Sublime Text? Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Frank.
Okay, I'll look it up. Thank you.
I'll look that up myself, because there's every now and then I want to do something. So here's what I ultimately ended up doing. I ended up getting a second monitor for my laptop that I borrowed from the company, and I brought up the company's website, and I recreated the company's website as another W site. We bought another license. So ours was like Konica Minolta Anaheim, or I forget what the acronym we used. And then we put that on all of our business cards. So when you went to the website that was on our local business cards, it took you to my site, where I had linked a page to the corporate website up to. So it came up and it looked just like the corporate's website, because they were actually on the corporate website. But I had an overlay piece of artwork that said Anaheim location. See what we've got going. And only the people who came in this way saw that. So they click on that, and now it would bring up the local. It was now here locally on a local website here in Anaheim. All the links are still valid back to corporate. I maintain that. I checked them every week to make sure they were still valid. And we could have specials if we wanted to. We could talk about, hey, here's a little trick that so-and-so figured out how to solve this problem. Here's a little tutorial I found online that does such and such. We had our own customized stuff. And we got away with it for years till corporate came down on us and said, you really should be, hey, we're not changing your site. We're just redirecting them to ours. That's all. And only if they use our web address rather than your web address. And after 3 or 4 times, I almost had them convinced, they may now, for all I know, but I almost had them convinced that, you're getting so big, but you got smart people in all these locations. Why don't you let them maintain their own version? Unless they do a shitty job, then you can take it out. Let them maintain their own version. So it would come up and say, I see that you're using the geolocation. I see that you're located, your zip code is 92807. Would you like to see what's going on at the Konica Minolta dealer in your area? That kind of crap. Or would you like to go to a different one? And some places did. Some of the other, because they had like 60 dealerships across the country. I shouldn't say dealerships. They were owned by Konica Minolta, because they had independents that were also dealers. But eventually, a few of the other technical guys started doing exactly the same thing because they wanted a little bit of control. You know, bottom line should be we want to sell more product. That's all we care about. Sell more product as long as we're not doing anything illegal or immoral. We want to be able to offer. We would do things like offer special training where normally you'd have after they sold you a $40,000 color copier back then. The guy would come out and spend 1 or 2 hours with you. Well, now we would take those. Sometimes we would record those 1 or 2 hours for them, and there'd be a customer portal that they could go in and see in case they hired a new guy. They could see a demo being done at their location by our salesman or our technical guy 6 months or a year earlier. And all we had to do was just store that video locally on our site. We didn't have to go back out there and spend time doing that again. It was a great idea. I just couldn't get anybody to follow through with it. But our branch was very successful doing it. So that's exactly what I would do. I had my clone site looking so much like the original site. A lot of times they couldn't tell because I used all the same artwork. I used all the same. I had bought a little program called Screen Ruler, which is still available for a Mac, so I could put it up there and actually count. It would actually count the pixels, so I could actually lay it out exactly the same. Because I didn't want somebody coming up and saying, well, it doesn't look like ours. What do you mean it doesn't look like yours? There it is. It's exactly the same. I thought that was pretty creative at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that was.
There's always a way. It may not be the right way, but there's always a way. Okay, anybody?
Can we go to another topic?
Sure, of course.
All right. Well, when I emailed you, I had found a review about a program called disconnect.us, and it looked so good to me that I'm paying for the service actually for 5 years.
Okay.
Because what it does is to intercept all of the every time I go online, you know, people track you. Right. And it stops the tracks, and I've been amazed at what they can't get to me now. I mean, on a daily basis, it can be 100 or more times that people have, used this automaticity of tracking me to see where I go, and I absolutely love it. There's a small delay I've noticed sometimes. It must be a PC program because it doesn't act a lot like a Mac program, but it puts a small shield up on your menu bar there. And I don't know if anybody else has had the opportunity to try something like that and what their experience has been, but this, I really like the situation where they can't track what I'm doing. It makes a big difference.
I used something like that years ago, and I will say years ago, it's probably been 6 or 7 years. But I found that it really slowed everything down a lot. Now, granted, I had a slower internet access then. It was still this computer. But I found every time I did anything, it was like you said, there was a little bit of a delay. It was a noticeable delay. And it bugged me. So I found myself selectively turning it off and on, which bugged me.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed that maybe 2 seconds is all it does.
That's livable.
Yeah. But what I also like is that I can look back and see on any particular day how many were of these websites were trying to track me, and it's good.
And what does it cost, Janine?
Oh, you'd have to go to the website and check it out. I think it was like 100 and something for 5 years.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, not bad at all. Disconnect.us is, I have no idea why they chose that name. I don't even know if the U.S. means United States or not.
It does. They did that two-letter extension. About, I think all the countries have them now, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So, because com was getting used so much, www, there's actually a www2 or www3, but you never hear about them. the net registries are taking care of all that. But they were looking for.
That doesn't.
I'd love for them to come out with a dot PORN, just so they can move all the porn garbage or double X or something, triple X or something like that, so and make all the porn junk move into that spot, because that box. I mean, it's a different story if I want to go look for it, and that's easy to find nowadays. But I'd sure like to not find it by mistake. I hate that more than anything else.
But of course, we know that having a .us does not mean that the domain is owned by or hosted in the U.S.
That's true. It's just a way to have more names. That's all.
Right.
Because like a lot of TVs, like a lot of the twit.tv, there was already a twit.com, so twit.tv, which is Leo Laporte stuff, .tv. And
well, if it was Canada, would it .can?
No, it would be .ca.
Oh.
Okay. Or there's a whole series you can look them up of legitimate extensions that you can use, and then it breaks down to where who can't use what, or there's supposed to be ones for like like gov is reserved theoretically for government. We know it's not. You can get porn sites that have a .gov. EDU is supposed to be for education. Com is supposed to be short for commercial. DEV is supposed to be short for developer. That kind of thing. That was the whole logic behind this. But they just needed to have more names. So like as an example, .net. I wanted to get greglock.com, but there's a guy in Newfoundland who has greglock.com. So I could have obviously Gregory Lock or Gregory J Lock, but then I thought, well, hardly anybody ever called me by Gregory except when they're mad at me. So I thought, but then here was another one. I wanted to have afterhoursmac.com. And by golly, somebody had that. Now it's become available. That spot's available now, and they want like $200 for me to buy that name. And I've pretty much retired completely. I mean, I help people out on the phone, but I really don't want to get in the car and drive anymore to go help people, because I'm a little too, first off, I don't charge for drive time. And then I found myself driving out to the valley a couple of times. And so I stopped that. And so I included hour up and an hour back, because I figured that was about what it would be if I was driving back and forth to work. And if it goes beyond that, it was like you had to pay for it. That's all there was to it. So I had afterhours.org, afterhoursmac.org, and afterhoursmac.net, but I couldn't get .com. So .net was the one that I used. And if people wanted to, they could just type in After Hours Mac, and all of them on the Google search page, they would show up anyway. But of course, .com was the first one that everybody went to, thinking it was me. So I thought, it could have been, you can have your own extension. In fact, I think there's even a way of doing that where I could use my initials if I wanted to. I just didn't see any reason for it. So I dropped every website I've got. I dropped the OACC website. We were paying several $100s a year for what? It's not really worth it anymore. We were paying somebody to do the mailing stuff for us. I do it all through mail now. I what little there is, I mean, I type up whatever I'm going to do. I go into my contacts list. I have one called OACC email list. I select one, then do a Command A. Then I go over to the BCC slot, the blind carbon copy spot in mail, and just paste them all in there. And then within a couple of minutes, if anything bounces back, I look to see. And if it says could not get to zippity doodah, I try to see if I can get to it directly. And if I don't, and they didn't bother to tell me, they're dropped off the list. If somebody sends me back saying, please don't put me on this list anymore, they're dropped off the list. But I keep a record of who I drop off the list. So in case they said, I haven't gotten anything from you for a year, I said, well, back on March 23rd, you sent me this email, dummy, that said, please take me off your list. So I'm just doing it all by hand, because it's only, once or twice a month. It's not a big deal. And it only takes a couple of minutes. I got it down pretty much to a science, rather than using something like MailChimp or some third-party utility to do that for. It's just not worth it for the twice a month that I use it. So the only thing that the club is paying for at all anymore is Zoom, is this service here, which anybody can use. Anybody can use it if they want to. Anybody in the club's welcome to use this for whatever they want, as long as you don't do it at the same time I'm trying to do it, because I'll bump you off. But if you wanted, first off, Zoom lets you have 40 minutes for free anyway. And as weird as it sounds, I could connect directly to Bart if he was there. I could connect directly to Bart, send him a link, and I could initiate a session, and Bart could join in, and I could have up to 25 people join in on the free version. At 38 minutes, it starts warning you, disconnecting you in 2 minutes. But then all you got to do is let it disconnect you and start it up again, and then send out new invitations. So they're pretty lenient about what they do and don't offer. Figured that most people, 30 minutes, they would know how to do it. That's why they chose 40 minutes. But and they normally somebody's bleeding something here in the background. And so I found out, this is $15 a month or $150 a year. And we can have up to 100 people. It'll display up to 50. We can have up to 100 people on with the license that we have for as long as we want. It can be 24 hours a day. As far as I know, there's nothing in the rules that says against it. And anybody can start a session up using this link if they want to. So you can use that link if you want to do your own thing. Just do me a favor. Don't be doing it on the second Saturday, or in this case, the third Saturday of the month from 9 to noon. But after that, I could care less. And whoever uses the link, they become the host. That's the way it works. Now, because I'm the one who has the passwords, I can disconnect if I need to. But I asked them about that, and they said, "No, we don't care. It's a club. You can use it for your club if you want to." So I'm going to use it for my I mean, we're already paying $150 a month, and I'm using it for what, 3 hours, 4 hours a month, something like that. We're going to use it for our travel club, for our motorhome group. There's about 300 of us, of which we've got about 8 or 9 that are on the board of directors. Now we're all going to meet in Lake Mead in December, so we have a meeting a month or so before our annual meeting, and it'll be a party trip. Let's face it, we're all going out. We're out camping right on Lake Mead itself, and we're paying off of our own pocket for it. But we're all driving out there. We're going to just have a weekend trip with like the 9 of us or whatever the hell it is. But I said, if there's anything we ever want to do, contact me, and I'll host the damn thing and walk you through it on what there's involved, or I'll send you out the little iPad sheet or the iMac or the Mac sheet that I made up that'll get you in the ballpark at least for getting going. But you can always do the freebie. But if anybody ever wants to use this, shoot, just go ahead and use it. I don't care. Just don't. If you find yourself getting bumped, I would let you know first. It's because you're conflicting with something I'm doing, which is almost never other than Saturday. So makes sense to me. How can you beat the deal for $150 a month? We're good for another few years now. Whether I continue doing it or not, that's a different story. Because I want to travel more and more and more, and it might be one of those things that whenever I'm in town, we just do it or whatever. Or if somebody sends me an email saying, "Anybody know how to do this?" we might just do an impromptu one, something like that. But
send me the cheat sheet. I'd
you
like
don't have
to see the cheat sheet.
The one made for Mac and the one made for iPad.
Well, if I want to contact somebody, I want to be sure that I'm not doing something wrong.
That's something you got to go. You got to go to Zoom.us, and they have tutorials and all that stuff how to do that. I never bothered to put that in paper. I saw no reason for it. So go to Zoom.us, and you can travel throughout the whole site for free. Look whatever you want, and it'll tell you exactly how to do it. And you can either do it a freebie, and it'll create an on-the-fly link for you, or you can use this one here, which is in all the emails. You can use this one here to start up a session, and then once the session starts up, the host gets an option down at the bottom that says invite. And when you click on invite, it's already put that content that I had in the email. And like as an example, if I wanted to in this invite, I could go ahead and go into my contacts list. I just haven't done it. I could go into my contacts list and add everybody out of the contacts list that's on that OACC email list, and then bring up this dialog box and just click invite, and it does it all for me. I just haven't gotten around to doing it. But otherwise, there's 2 options. There's a copy invitation or copy the URL, or just put the names in here and have it do it for you. And that's all built in. So you could make up your own. You could make up your own list and do something along the same lines if you really wanted to. But nowadays there's a lot of different ways of doing it. I mean, they haven't turned it back on yet completely, but you can obviously through QuickTime you can connect up to other people. You can do it through through what's now called messages, iChat. You can do it like the 4 people with messages. But shoot, this works out so good. I love the ability to be able to share screens rather than taking over somebody's screen. And we with TeamViewer, you guys can do TeamViewer is a freebie as long as you're not making money off of it. Janine, if you wanted to, well, I think I've done it with you or Steve had, where you get yourself a copy of TeamViewer, which is free, and you call me on the phone and say, Greg, can you show me how to do such and such? I start up TeamViewer at my end, you start up TeamViewer at your end. While we're on the phone, I ask you for this session's password. I get your ID, that's yours forever. I get your password, which is unique to each session. Put the password in, and now I'm connected to you directly, where I can take over your screen and do whatever, and you can see what I'm doing. So it's a great training tool from that standpoint. It only works on a one-to-one basis, but it's free.
And interesting here, TeamViewer has been throwing up on my screen. We suspect that this is being used for commercial purposes.
I'm sure it is.
Well, you're sure that I'm using it for commercial purposes?
No. Like in my case, I mean, whenever I charge $75 an hour in person or $40 an hour on the phone. Now I pretty much just only want to help people out. Right. And if it's over an hour, you're going to get a bill from me. If it's under an hour, you're probably not going to get a bill.
No, I introduced what I'm saying by that purpose because
I understand that, Robert, and I always felt a little uncomfortable using it for that.
Well,
but in most cases, I didn't. I would help somebody out, and I wouldn't bill them for it because I keep records of all that crap, and that just didn't bother. It just wasn't worth it. So,
having said that,
the only person that really bugged was my wife because we're sitting in the same room and she wants to watch TV.
I get that. Okay, so having said that, that was an intro to the fact that I do use TeamViewer a great amount. I've installed it on many of my clients. Ultimately, my reality was, if I really wanted to be continuing to use TeamViewer on an ongoing basis, I really did need to pony up and purchase a license for it.
I don't even know how much that is, to be honest with you.
It's excessively expensive. Let me just say that.
So is Log Me In or any of those. They're like $30 a client or something like that.
It's very expensive, and it depends whether you want to control others and how many and
right.
All that. And then they regularly come out with a new version, and then the new version, everybody has to be in sync again. It's kind of like QuickBooks. Everybody, the account and the company have to be using the same version. So it's a continual, regular renewal of your license, upgrade of the license, blah, blah, blah. Point is that in the PC world, there forever was Microsoft Remote Desktop.
And I have that. I also have Apple Remote Desktop.
Yeah, right. And Microsoft Remote Desktop was the way that was used. Basically, you take over another machine, and typically the other person has no access at all to what's going on when you take over their machine.
You know what I used to use that for, Robert? When I was working for Konica Minolta, because I had a PC on my desk, and I had my own personal Mac. And I would use Remote Desktop to access the PC because I hated using the PC keyboard.
I'm with you. And so Microsoft ended up making an application called Microsoft Remote Desktop for Macs. So you can use that client app on a Mac to control a remote PC typically. And
Same deal. But it takes it over though, right?
Correct, takes it over. The user typically can't even see what's going on. It blanks out.
Like a little Microsoft logo bouncing around on the screen or something like that to let you know it's up and running.
You have certain options there. Apple also came out with an Apple Remote Desktop emulating that. But what
there's free alternatives. You can download a free version called Chicken of the VNC. Have you ever used that?
Yes.
And that's great because you can slide in behind somebody and change. I used to change stuff. People would be typing something in. They didn't know I was connected. I'd be sitting in the same room with them because I wanted to hear a bitch.
That's
but I
right.
would come to them, and they'd be typing something in, and I would hit the delete key and delete it back out. And they'd be typing something in, and I hit the delete key and delete it back out. There's something wrong with my computer. I'd go in there, I'd be like Mr. Magic, fix it in a minute, Right. Then they'd realize I was playing games with them,
Now, to do all of this, you do have to have your username and password to log in as, etc. And yes, Chicken of the Sea was a VNC client, as was Real VNC.
Right, Real VNC is the other one. I'm trying to think of the name.
All of these pieces of software are all using VNC software, which is Virtual Network Computer Protocol, to control another computer. And TeamViewer has allowed you to both to be using the screen at the same time? Well, because as Greg repeated my mantra, there's always a way. Keeping things up to date, each one has because these are very typically free kind of real, Chicken of the Sea is a free VNC application. And it wasn't really keeping up. It had a maximum monitor size. And so sometimes you had a smaller screen into what was a larger screen, and things were really small, and you could only open the window certain size. Developers didn't keep things up to date. Well, one of the tools that we haven't yet realized, and what I'm in the middle of actually creating here today, is making more use of the Macintosh OS X operating system. If you were to go out to your Finder and to go to your Go menu, you'd find down there, Connect to Server at the very bottom. And so at the bottom of the Finder Go menu, Connect to Server, if you bring that up, if you were to type in VNC : and then an IP address, and this IP address exists out in the world, and this IP address is set to allow others to connect to it via VNC, you can connect right in. So I have my son's IP address there, and I mean, you can add a collection of typical historical destinations. His address, VNC : 97.127, blah, blah, blah. And then I hit connect. It'll bring up username, password, and bingo. This is a built-in VNC client on the Mac, a native one, that allows you to not have to use Chicken of the Sea or Real VNC or any of these that we've just been speaking of. And in my case, where I have multiple machines at a particular public IP address, you would merely follow that IP address with a colon and then a port number. And then on the router at that destination address, you would be using port forwarding, such that if I came in on 8085 and went to this internal address, or 8086, it would go to that one, or 8087, it would go to this one. So you could redirect to multiple machines back behind a router. So in my son's case, he is the only device on his side. He has configured it to connect to his machine. So built into OS X is a VNC client, and we're probably not making use of it as often as we can. Where I'm saying connect to server VNC : you could also do SMB, AFP, other types of protocols to connect to remote computers. And one of the many things that's just kind of overlooked, and I see Greg going like crazy there saying, ooh, how can I do this? Who can I connect to? And all that kind of stuff.
That didn't mean to me.
Anybody that you have been connecting via Chicken of the Sea or any other method remotely, this is a built-in one that is very nice and always up to date, so to speak. What do you think, Greg?
Well, I'm going to show you. Yeah, no, I think that's great. There is. I'm going to show you something that I ran across, and I haven't done any scripting for a long time, and boy, I was amazed at how ancient I had gotten about that. Let me get back over here.
Wow, that reminds me. Maybe I can tell that to Ria that as well. Good question.
Oh, I'm sure you can. Let me go share my desk.
All right, let me be slow on the uptake, and you're going to be just, oh yeah, of course you could.
Okay, and let me exit that full screen. And we're planning out our trip that we're going to leave about mid-August, and we'll be gone probably till the end of September, first part of October. And I'm using this program here called Harvey Trip Wizard. I used it last year and it worked out great. So let me log in. Huh. Well, I'm gonna show the demo. That'll be easier. I got something wonky here. Yeah, whatever. Should always have more than one email. This is the one I don't care. This and Yahoo I don't care about. Okay, so where do we get the demo? Oh, here we go. Okay, so what you're looking at there is the eastern chunk of the United States here.
I'm taking a look now at RV Trip Wizard. Version 5 was just released in May 2017. For this video, I want to concentrate on what you do the first time you use your account. There are a few extra steps you've got to take, or the trip and its stops, or the buttons in the search box.
All right, let me pause this. What you're looking at there is, whatever. This program is you literally can put in, up here at the top, you can put in wherever you want to go and where you're starting from, and it basically draws the map. I mean, there's a lot of programs that do this. And then the little green things that you're showing are known camping locations that you can spot within. You can filter this through. So I can put the membership clubs that we belong to. I can have it show the free spots. I can have it show Bureau of Land Management or dispersed camping, like up in northern Washington and Oregon. I can put all these areas in, and I can put in points of interest, and then I can decide what order I want these to go in. I can put down what my estimated fuel costs are. I usually round it off to $4 a gallon for diesel. I can put in my estimated mileage. I usually put in 15 rather than 17 because I'd rather be ahead of the game than behind the game a little bit. I can put in what my average per night would be at a campground. I'd say average is probably about 35 or 40 a night. I'd say 40 a night probably on the average. But my Passport America gets me 50% off of the ones that'll accept that. So I do that. And then as I'm building these up, I can edit all this content over here at the left, and I'll put in parentheses PA for Passport America or Harvest Host or BLM or boondocking because I'm just camping on somebody's property or whatever. One of the drawbacks that this program has, and it's a gripe with this mouse, quite honestly, I got to get a different mouse. I've got the wireless Bluetooth Magic Mouse from Apple. So it doesn't have a scroll wheel. So one of the drawbacks that this mouse has...
Can't you use your finger and pet it? Stroke it?
The problem is I have lost the sensitivity in my fingers due to neuropathy and old age that, first off, I can't tell the left side of the menu of the mouse versus the right side of the mouse. So I don't have it on right now. But normally what I have is I have a piece of, what they call it, pinstriping running down because I can just barely feel the pinstripe. So I can see if my finger's on the, without looking at it, I can see if my finger's on the left side of the mouse or on the right side of the mouse. But the problem is when I want to scroll, when I want to scroll the image, in other words, I want the hand to come up, and you would normally hold the left mouse key down, hold it for a second, it turns into a hand, and now you can move the page to the left or to the right. That works fine, but the problem is sometimes I move the mouse before I do that, and moving my finger on the top turns on the zoom feature built into Safari. And there's no way to turn it off. And I have looked and I have checked with Apple. It's this mouse, it's the way this mouse interprets it. You can do it on the trackpad. On a regular mouse with a scroll wheel, you just wouldn't use the scroll wheel, right? Because the scroll's part of this one built into the touch, because this is a touchpad. The top of this mouse is a touchpad. This isn't working, so let me get out of this. So that's a drawback when I go to use that program, is it takes me about 2 or 3 minutes, because no matter how, and I've looked at all the preferences, I've checked them all, I've read all the Google crap, it's this mouse. I've already tested it out by trying an old USB mouse, plugging it in. That'll work. That solves the problem. There's no way to turn off that, not the tap to feature, not the tap to zoom, but the using the scroll. And it's the way Safari, all the browsers do it. It's the way this company does it. And some of the companies that you deal with that have this limitation for map-wise, have the ability to turn that off as a preference of their end. You can't do it on this particular program.
Okay.
So I started looking around, how could I disable that feature completely? And it was really bugging me the night that I was trying to get past it, because it seemed like every time I'd move the mouse, I would change the zoom, and it pissed me off that I was doing that. So let me share this back again. And I'm not going to do it because I have to reboot the computer to do it, but I'll show you a little stunt that I came up with. Oh, come on. Not what I wanted. I ended up going into terminal. I found somebody online that had, did I trash it already? There we go. I found somebody online that had the commands to go into terminal to turn this off and on. I'm going to zoom this up. I don't think you guys can see the zoom when I do that. I don't think that works. Damn. Let me get that again. So I don't know if you can see that code there, but make that bigger or smaller? Oh, whatever. But almost anytime you see anybody who puts any code in that says defaults, that's writing into the core operating system of the Mac. And I'm telling it, look, I want to write to this file com.apple menu multi-touch mouse .moment .whatever scroll wheel boolean, making it a yes or a no. Says no. What I'm doing is I want this script to tell this to turn that feature off on this mouse when I want to. And so I found this online doing a Google search on how do I change the default behavior. You can change the default behavior on anything. And by golly, I found this little script. And the problem was I didn't want to have to type this in every time. So I would open up Terminal. I've got Terminal open here. And let me open up a window. And if I go to the VI editor, and there it is right there. So I wanted to turn this into a script. Basically, I could go to Google and I could copy in this line of text off the Google page and paste it in here. Then paste the next, copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. And when you're done with all these, in fact, if I widen this out a little bit, so you can see it. After you do these 6 lines, then all you have to do is reboot the computer, because it has to write it into the core operating system to do that. Now that scroll zoom, now the scroll feature using the mouse is turned off. So it's great for that program, but that sucks for every other program I want to use. So I ended up duplicating this file to one called scroll on, and scroll on just changes the command no here to yes in all 6 cases. And then again, the same thing, after you do all 6 of those lines, you reboot the computer, and now it's back to the way it was normally.
Greg?
So, yeah, go ahead.
I've got a way that you'd have to spend a few bucks to do it, but with my Wacom tablet, it comes with a mouse that it doesn't work, like on your tabletop, but if you run it around the Wacom tablet, it performs all the functions of a mouse, just like any other mouse. But this thing, it has a separate left and right mouse button, and I don't know if you can see it. Oh, maybe you can now, but down the middle of it, you'll notice it's got the thumb wheel on it.
Right, any mouse with a thumb wheel will work.
So you could set up a combination like that and not have to go through all this.
I realize that. I was just too lazy at the time to do it. So one day this week or whatever, I'll stop by price and buy a $15, $20 mouse that has a scroll wheel. That'll solve the problem because they'll all work. I'll just leave it plugged in and just won't use it except when I'm doing that particular program. But I ended up making myself two little simple scripts here, giving them to run inside the Bash environment, so I can literally now just double click that script. It runs, reboot the computer. See it I even have it send me a message back to the screen. Reboot the computer, and I've turned it off, or reboot the computer and I've turned it back on. But that's one way of there's always a way of getting around it. It just may not be the most convenient thing.
In fact, yes, you could as this script, you could write a script to run those commands and then to start up a program.
That's what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to eventually add that to it. But I think probably the simplest thing, Robert, because I may find other programs that I want to use that feature, is to spend the $20 and buy a cheap USB mouse.
Oh, heck. What the heck do you want to spend money for? I got
a 7-port USB hub back here. I'm only using a couple of them. Might as well plug some other toy into it. But I was getting at it, I said, wait a minute, I used to do shit like this all the time. It was funny. It was so bad I couldn't remember. I wrote a manual on the VI editor, and I couldn't remember how to do something in VI. I couldn't remember how to do substitute. When there was only 6 lines I had to change, no to yes, I couldn't remember how to string out the substitute. I finally went back and did it so I remember again. And I used to have a little cheat sheet that I made up that was pocket sized, and it just pissed me off that, geez, I've given presentations on this, and I can't remember how to do it anymore.
Yeah, well.
We're never too old to learn again.
You're good until you forget Marcia's name. Then we have a problem.
Well, you can always use dear, sweetheart, or darling, or shorty, or whatever.
There is that one.
Okay, guys. Anybody got anything else they want to talk about or discuss?
Yes.
Go ahead.
It's an old one because I'm slow, but the death or the killing of iTunes. Now I have a couple of iTunes cards. What do I do? Are they viable? Are they usable?
Of course they are, Bonnie. They're always going to be viable. They're not really killing iTunes. They're fixing iTunes. The problem with iTunes right now on the Mac, at least, they've already fixed it on the iPad and the iPhone. On the Mac, everything's embedded into one. iTunes has your music, which is where it originally started. Then it has your movies. Then it has your home videos. Then it has your podcast. Then it has your streaming service. There's too much inside iTunes to be called iTunes. It'll probably be renamed to Apple Music because I think Apple's trying to get away from that I designation. That
correct.
Remember, for everybody was thinking the Apple Watch was going to be called the iWatch. They want people to remember the Apple name more than anything else. So I think you'll find they're going to change it to Apple Music, but they're not going to stick you on the car. Mm-hmm. What they've already done on the iPad and the iPhone over the last version or two of the operating system is they've come up with an app called TV, and they've come up with an app called Podcast. The Podcast app is the podcast that were in iTunes removed out as a separate app, so it only looks at podcasts. The TV app is all the movies, TVs, shows, all that kind of crap that you have inside of iTunes, moved out to a separate app. So when you go there, you can still purchase. You'll go to the Apple Store. You can still purchase movies and stuff. Everything's inside there. They've already fixed the clutter situation more so on the iPad and the iPhone. Now, one of my big gripes on the iPad and the iPhone was on my 12-inch iPad, and I've got about 600 movies, I guess, something like that I bought through the iTunes store. Whenever I see their cards on sale, I buy a bunch of their cards because you only get to save 10% for something, and that's usually what I ask for as a gift. And so I've got a lot of movies, and my big gripe is every time I open them up, it's like it didn't maintain the images for the cover art. Didn't maintain the cover art, so it would always come up with blank pages. It would have the title, come up with blank pages, then a second or two later, they'd all be repainted and they'd all finally show up. And as long as I left that session open, I was okay. Sure as hell, next time I rebooted the computer, turned on iTunes, it did exactly the same thing. One of the updates they did on the iPad like a week or two ago, whatever they've done, they've solved that problem. It's almost instantaneously has the cover art already there fixed. So that's an improvement. So all they're going to do in the case of iTunes is they're going to break it up into probably what I think is going to be called. They may keep the name iTunes. I don't know.
No,
They're probably going to call it Apple Music.
It already exists as music on your phone.
But you're not going to lose anything. Everything's still going to be viable because it's all through the Apple Store.
Right. The music app already exists on the iPad and iPhone. You may not have seen that, but the much of what is happening on the iPad, iPhone, the iOS is transferring over for continuity, if you will, between the two operating systems. In fact, we really didn't speak much about that, but the iPad, in fact, is going to have its own operating system.
Right, iPad OS.
Right. And one of the real developer aspects of this is that people with iOS applications, they're going to have a very easy transition to creating those applications to be working on the Mac OS.
Good.
So, the merging, the melding is happening, and iTunes will continue, in fact, to be iTunes in the Windows environment. We don't know how long, but that's going to stay there. But on the Mac, much of what you're doing in music and such will be in iTunes will be broken out. And within music, the new app that will appear in the next version of the Mac OS, when you get into that, you will see what looks like iTunes, because much of your purchases and that kind of stuff still has to happen. So they're using much of the same interface that exists today in iTunes inside of music.
But it's going to definitely reduce the clutter of that size of that database.
Right. So you're going to be doing iTunes stuff inside of music, iTunes stuff, purchasing, if you will, inside of your books, and iTunes stuff inside of your TV stuff.
Yeah, because most people probably don't remember when iBooks used to be part of iTunes. They broke that out a year ago.
Exactly. That's right. So each of these things are going to be broken out into their own item, and the path to make purchases will be the store, if you will be iTunes, but the application will be specific to the type of activity that you're doing. And separate from that, I don't know if I heard, maybe I was distracted, when you plug in your phone into the next version of the operating system, it won't be iTunes.
Yeah.
It will be like any other device.
Right. You can turn that feature off if you want to, but by default, it was always on.
It will, right. Unfortunately, you wanted it more often than you thought or recognized, because it was your method to back up. But in the same way today, when you plug in a device into the Mac, whether it be a US flash drive or a USB external drive, a device showed up on the left-hand side, and sometimes a window would pop up. Well, now when you plug in your phone, it will be like a USB drive or a USB flash drive or whatever else, and it will pop up a window that you would then be able to back up your phone like any other device.
You'd be able to drag files back and forth, my understanding is now.
Correct, yes, right.
A true file manager.
Is it available now?
No,
I'm sorry?
it'll come out. It'll be out in September.
Okay.
Right. The developer conference is an announcement for where they're going, so developers can start making the modifications that they need to their apps, or take advantage of it and perhaps have a new app available at the release of the next operating system. But developers like to know what the user is going to see and how they're going to experience it, so then perhaps have an opportunity to, quote, better the situation than the default situation that they perceive might have holes or weaknesses or not have the power as Apple's going to deliver it. So that's where app developers will release with an operating system. Yes, we know now you have to do it like this. We're going to let you do it the old way, or we're going to take what Apple did and turbo it and give you 2 times 10. So that's how we get all these other utilities that take Apple's methods and extend them.
Well, I'm hoping that I'm on the quote guest beta tester. So like I've got the 0.6 version that beta that just came out the other day of 10.14 or whatever the hell it is. But I always have it set whenever it comes back and says there's a new update. I know that's what it is because I signed up for that way back when. and I go ahead and take it, but I've already backed up my system, so it's not a problem. So, but every now and then I'll find something and I'll flag them and let them know or whatever. Now, whether they pay attention to me or not, I don't know. But there's a good possibility the Gold Master Beta will probably be released for the Mac operating system. My guess is August for the guest beta testers or whatever it is. So maybe at the August meeting, I'll have some of these available to show. If not then maybe at the September or October meeting, but we'll see. But I always take it just to be able to play with it and see whether I'm going to like it, whether I can start bitching about it now, or do I have to wait a couple of months to bitch about it like everybody else? So.
Okay, I want to ask a question.
Go ahead.
About the watch, is that okay?
I've
been trying to update the operating system on my watch, and when I go to do it at night, and I get a message, well, it's full. You have to take off some of your music or some of your photos. So, okay, I go to the phone and find the watch thing, and I don't know how to do. I've tried deleting stuff there, and it still doesn't work. I'm not sure what to do.
You know, I don't normally put anything on here, but let me see. Let me see if I can get that back in here. I just want to share it. And we'll do that. I didn't pick up the iPhone. Try that again. Trying to get the iPhone to show up here through QuickTime. And it worked earlier this morning. Now it's going to make a liar out of me. Maybe it's just not recognizing my phone's plugged in. That beep, that should be good. There we go. All right, 47 minutes later.
Yeah.
Okay, so you should be, at the very least, this is probably what I would try first.
Yeah.
Is you see where I'm at here, go into photos.
Right.
And mirror my iPhone, yeah, I don't care. Synced album, yeah, whatever. Photos, go down to photos limit. And I've got mine set at 100. I would change it to 25.
Yeah, I did that.
And nothing happened?
No, it still won't go. It just says the memory is full. It was not just photos, it was also music.
See, I have the automatic app install turned off because that was driving me crazy. Getting crap added to it that I didn't care about.
Okay, there's songs.
What version of the watch do you have?
Whatever one it came with.
No, that was what I meant. Is it a series 0 or series 1, 2, 3, or 4?
It's 4.
It's a 4? You got the same as me. You got the latest one.
Yeah.
Okay, so Robert, do you know offhand? Probably not there. I've still got 8 gig. I hardly ever put a lot of junk on it because I almost always have the phone with me anyway.
I do have a lot of music because I have a lot of music on my iPad because that's what I use when I teach my dance class.
Sure, I can understand that. You know, the apps you can install. Shit, give me a break.
Yeah. I would have thought, it's so unintuitive. It's just not Mac-like.
Right. This is probably so simple. It's stupid that I won't.
Greg?
Yeah.
A minute ago, you were on a thing where I noticed there was an option to add music. You'd think that they'd also have built-in subtract music.
Well, you'd think so. That would make sense. So just for that reason, that's why they didn't do it. What does it say when it comes up?
I think part of the question is, what do they mean when they say that the memory is full? Are they saying it's full because your phone is full of memory? I mean, is that the full memory, or is it the fact that the watch cannot make enough contact? I don't understand memory full.
At this page right here, you see the number. I don't have any for that.
Okay.
When I turned off those music mixes, when I turned off those options, it took out the songs that I had.
Okay.
So I don't know how you would do it for photos wise, but so let's see. Let me go back over there again. So if I go back to music, and let's put the favorites mix and the chili mix, and put these back in here again, and go back and see what it says. Go back into general.
Okay.
And about. It still shows 0. But it shows that I've got 45 photos on here. I don't even know which 45 I've got on here. Probably the most recent. But you can look down this list. You can see the capacity of a Series 4 watch is 12.6 gig. You see that, right?
Right.
There.
So what is it? What is that 12.6 full of?
No, that's how much RAM is inside that watch.
I got that. I understand that. Okay. What I don't understand is what is full. Are they saying that the capacity is full? And if so,
look at your watch right now. Look at the available. How much room do you have right now?
Okay, I'd have to go get my phone. I don't have it with me right now.
Right,
but okay, I see where you're saying it's available. What is available?
Right. Remember, we had the same problem with the iPhones because the way the operating systems used to load is if your iPhone was nearly full, you couldn't do an update.
Yeah.
Because what it wanted to do is it wanted to install a complete copy of the operating system on before it trashed the old one out.
Right.
Remember that? Okay. That was a real issue for a long time. So people had to delete, especially when they were 8 gig iPhones. People had to delete, this is a 128 gig, no, this is a 256. So people had to delete a lot of junk off first, get the new operating system, then put all the new junk back on. Now what it does is, I think you need like 1 gig of open space or something like that, but it does part A, that's working. Part B, yeah, that's working. Part C, yeah, that's working. Part D, yeah, that's working. It does it in pieces, the way it does it. So what you want to do is you want to look down here to where it says available. Now, at the very least, if you have any of that stuff turned back, oops, sorry.
So I'll just have to go down to see whatever I can find and turn off. And then do the update and then restore it back.
Yeah, check and see. I would imagine it's going to want about at least 2 gigs of space, 2 gigs of open space.
Okay.
Put that in there.
All right, I can do that.
That sounds about right.
Okay, I think I was just in the wrong area then.
And I think, yeah, let's see, can you turn? You can't do that. No, but you can make that a favorite. What does that do? I think setting your photos limit, I'm sure if I change that to 500, it's going to start downloading more photos. It's probably going to put the 500 most recent photos in, by default or whatever.
Right.
But it'll probably take a while. We probably won't see it change right away.
Yeah, that's where I was, and I could not change the number of photos at that point. So that's what I'm going to have to. Okay. So you went to general, and then you went to about.
Yeah, you always see how much everything on the Macs or on the iPad. You always go to about.
Yeah.
And that tells you all the pertinent crap, for this, that kind of balloon there. If you want to change that, then it shows you all the Macs do the same thing. And then it shows you under capacity is available. So I've got 9 gigs of space to waste or use or whatever.
Okay. So you needed probably at least 2 gigabytes is what you're saying.
Yeah, my guess was that would be. Now, the worst case scenario, what I would do, you might do a Google search. I'm sure you'd find an answer there too. But the worst case scenario, I would probably go through here and, you can probably swipe. There you go. So I'd go through here and I'd pick a few that you don't use. I never use Audible on the watch, but I should. I've got a bunch of them. But I would go through here and pick out a few of these and delete. And it's going to take a moment or so for them to delete, and then go back and check general again. And they'll be dropped down to this list down here, so you can go back and pick them out again. So you might want to do them in the order that you got them, just for convenience. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Take the 7. Well, of course they'll be all over the place down there, but they'll now be available to reinstall. So you can always take a picture of that. Always take a picture of that. The power button and the camera button, and hold them down and let it take a screen snapshot, so you can go back and see what apps you had installed on there, I guess.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would you say that again? To take a screenshot, you hold down the power and the home button?
And the home button simultaneously.
Okay.
Takes a second or two. And that'll take a screenshot that's on here that goes into the photos collection. So it's on here right away. But at the same time, I could probably turn it around, and you could use what do they call it? Photo booth. And you could hold the watch up with the apps you got, hold them up to your screen.
Right.
Like hold them up to your computer like that, and take a screen snapshot. So if you wanted to see which ones you trashed, and so you could put it right back to where it was, you could.
Got it. There are a lot of workarounds.
Yeah, there's always a workaround. It's always a way. Like my Radar Pro. Hell, I don't use that. Why do I still have that on here? I don't know. Pedometer Plus. I don't walk enough to make that worthwhile. Harvey Companion. That's virtually worthless on the watch. Because I just got the room. I just never bothered to take them off.
Okay.
Did that help at all? Did that help?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
The only other I have, I'm sorry, full of questions today, but the only other thing that I have in trash on my Mac is there's something that will not delete, and I've tried everything that I know of, and I found out it's in the cloud, but I cannot get rid of it in the cloud either. There's nothing that'll get rid of it.
Did you try going onto the website directly to iCloud.com directly and going in there?
Okay, I'll do that. I'll do that.
Usually on the Mac, when it's if it's just it's usually an alias. So if you don't want, but it shows the trash can puffed up. That's the drawback. So it makes you think you got something in there. But if it's an alias, it's like 1K. It's less than 1K. But like I said, if anything's sitting in the trash, it makes it look like you've got to empty the trash, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can hold down the Option key when you hit empty trash, and that'll force an empty. But it doesn't.
I've
always
tried
work.
it. I've
If it
tried
sees
that.
that the file's open or in use,
There's an app called iTrash It or something like that. I tried that. It doesn't work.
It does the same thing. The only other thing you can do, this is really hardcore. If it's on the Mac, I don't know how you would do it in iCloud. If it's on the Mac, you can go into Terminal and you can find it in Terminal. That's a pain in the ass to do, but you can find it in Terminal. You can as root, you got to enable root user. As root, you can do all the damage you possibly want and all the fixes you possibly want.
I know. That's why I don't go in there, because I don't have any training. Not yet.
Yeah, just be aware of it. No. But you're right. It's buggy to see that. You know it's an empty file. It's making it look puffed up like it's got something in there when it really in fact doesn't have anything in there.
Just a little. I'm just being a little obsessive.
No, it bugs me too, and I would probably spend 2 hours to try to get rid of it off of mine just because it bugs me. You know, I can always load a new operating system, but that's a drag.
Yeah. Okay, that's all my questions.
I see Robert's not there. Frank, are you still online? I see you sitting there. You need to unmute yourself. Can you think of any? You know what she's talking about, don't you? Where you get an open file in the trash and it won't let you throw it away.
Yeah. Well, if it's in iCloud, I think you'd have to delete it from iCloud if you can, because my understanding is it's almost impossible to delete stuff from iCloud.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not so sure if you can go into www.icloud.com and get into the files, and if you can find it there, get rid of it there. I'm not 100% sure if you can do that or not, to be honest with you. I've never tried it.
Yeah, I've never tried it either, so.
Stay tuned.
You know what? We'll find out, because I've got a file I just thought of. I moved a picture to the top. By now, it's probably sitting on iCloud, so let's go see if it is. What the hell? We got time. So let me share that again. Let me hide Zoom for now. So here I've got this image here. It's remember, the desktop's going to iCloud already. So let's go to Safari. Let's go to iCloud. See if we can see that file. It should be in desktop. Oh, I picked Marcia because she was the last one I was using. That's why I should. You got to pay attention to what's coming up on the screen.
Yeah.
That's because I switched to Apple ID users. That's why it's asking me for this crap. It's your own browser, dummy. Can't you figure that out?
Yeah. So now you go to iCloud?
Well,
Drive?
it should be in Drive. Yeah, where is that at here? And we're looking for desktop.
So from desktop, can you get into your trash then?
No, but in my case, it's on the file I want to track. I want to see if I can even delete it.
So then you have to figure out which one of those folders.
There it is right there. See, there it is.
Yeah, yeah.
So I do have a trash can up here. How about that?
Okay, it just deleted it. Didn't go into it.
Yep. Nope. No, but it's gone. I mean, there is no puff up trash or whatever it is. But
okay.
it's within a moment or two, it should be gone here at this end too. But you don't have access. You don't have access to the trash folder because it's local on your. So what happens when you drag? When
So
you drag it out,
do you have, maybe can you do a search in iCloud Drive? Can you do a search for that particular file?
Hey, Greg.
Yeah.
You deleted it from iCloud, but as soon as iCloud sees it's still sitting on your desktop there, isn't it going to rewrite it to iCloud?
I'm not sure whether it does it one way or both ways. I think it takes it off my desktop here too, which is fine. That's what I wanted. Oh, wrong folder. No, it's gone completely as far as it's concerned here. So let's hide Safari temporarily. Nope, it took it here too. See, it took it out of both.
Yep.
Did it leave it in the trash can down here? That would be the logical thing to do. Yes, there it is right there. So when I trashed it at iCloud, it put it in the trash here for me, but of course it didn't empty the trash, so it's still here. So that would allow me to move it to a different folder that isn't being backed up by iCloud if I still wanted to keep it, but I didn't want to have to keep it online. So in your case, Janine,
yeah,
my guess is go to trash and see if you can drag it out of the trash onto the desktop.
I'll try.
Somewhere where you
that way I can get to it. Yeah. Okay. I can do that.
Okay. Because otherwise it's just a representation and there's no way to get, and we don't have, I'm sure if you were an Apple guy, you could probably hack down into it up there, but there's no direct access to files you deleted. I'm sure they have something very similar to it, but it's just not available to us.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. At least I've got some clues to start looking for it. Thanks.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Greg, I've got a question on another topic. Okay. I noticed that I've got 4 USB ports on the back of my new iMac. And when I was setting up my color printer, photo printer, the computer didn't recognize it. I tried rebooting the computer and everything else.
Didn't recognize the printer?
Didn't recognize the printer. I had connected it to the port that was closest to the edge of the computer, okay? So as an experiment, I moved
you had the printer turned on, right?
What?
You had the printer turned on prior to that?
I tried it both turned on and not turned on. I had gone through it over and over again trying to get it to work. So I then took the thing and just because I wanted to try everything, I moved the cable from the printer to the next port, the adjacent port.
Okay.
Okay. And lo and behold, everything worked. And I've tried repeating it, and it's the same thing. That one port that the printer wouldn't work on, everything else I plug into that port works. But for some reason, the printer doesn't want to work from that port.
I would, hang on just a second. Let's see, what do we want? System report. I would go into about this Mac and go into the system report and look down here at the USB ports and see if both of those, you might have to plug something in that definitely, I would I would think they would use one USB bus for all 4 USB ports across the back. I would think I would think they would all be on the same bus, but they may not. They don't always do stuff like that, because figuring that in case something, if you can see like right up here, so I'm looking up here, I've got 2 USB. Can you see this that I'm looking at?
No, I'm seeing you. You're not sharing.
Oh, I'm not sharing it. Sorry. Okay, now you see it?
Yes.
System information.
Right.
So in this particular case, I have 2 USB 2.0 buses. That's how old this machine is.
Okay.
And I have a USB 3.0 bus, right? There's usually 3 or 4 buses.
Okay.
Bring this window down a little bit more. So like they know they don't need to waste power. So the keyboard is usually USB 2.
Okay.
There's no reason to put it on a USB 3 bus. So I've got plugged into my iPad and a USB speaker coming off of this 3 bus. My iPhone and is coming off of this 3 bus, and and all 3 disk drives are coming off this one. Well, they're actually coming off of a USB 3 bus that I've got a what do they call it? Thunderbolt expansion port on the back. So they're actually coming off of that. So I would take a known if you've got a flash drive of some sort, I'd be tempted to open this up, plug the flash drive into one of the ports, and it'll show up here USB flash drive. You'll see it'll show up here on that list within a second or two, and then move it and see when you move it from, I'll call it the outside most USB port to the next one in, to the next one in, to the next one in. See if they're all showing up under the same bus slot.
Oh, okay.
If they are, you might have a problem with that bus, with that port on that bus slot. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
In which case I need to contact Apple and probably take the computer.
Yeah, but before you waste the time doing that, see if they're all on the same. I'm hoping that it's on a separate USB bus. And so some of those ports may be on let's call it bus A, and some may be on bus B, and maybe even on bus C. You with me?
I'm with you, but even if the thing is on a separate port,
it might be a problem, but at least you know that it's not going to affect the other ones for the time being.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I know it isn't affecting the other ones because when I move the printer to the other ones, the printer works. You know, the computer sees the printer.
No, but you want to make sure that bus is workable. Maybe it's a limitation just for the printer only is what I'm saying. The only other thing I could think it might be would be maybe a bad cable between the 2. Yeah. And maybe when you moved it that little bit, you tweaked it back to making connection again.
Yeah, that's what I already eliminated that thought. Okay, well, I'll try that and see what happens. And if I can't pin it down, ultimately, I'll call up Apple and talk to them.
Yeah, and keep us informed of it so we can all share in that issue. I mean, did you hear that issue that he had, Robert?
I'm sorry, no.
Okay. On his new iMac, it's about a year old, he's got 4 USB ports across the back. My assumption would be all 4 USB ports there would be plugged into the same USB bus, but not necessarily. Right?
No.
They split them up.
And you can see that you can tell how many buses you have and all of that by going to About This Mac, go to System Report, and go down to USB, and you will see the different buses that your computer will have. Some will be a 3.0, some will be a 3.1, etc.
Right, but the problem he has is when he plugs his printer into the outermost USB port of those 4, the one closest to the edge, it doesn't show up. When he moves it over one more port, it shows up fine.
Given that a printer is a low-speed USB device, yeah, I'd be suspect on the port.
I suggested that he go into About This Mac because you can see it as you move. You can see as you plug stuff in, they'll update within a second or two.
Will other devices work properly on that port?
Did you try? Have you tried that, Bart? Have you tried
Yes,
anything else?
And he said that he's tried everything else works on it but the printer.
But the printer.
Yes, that's correct.
So a single port works for all devices except a printer, and that printer works fine on other ports.
Right.
Correct.
Well, then don't bother Apple.
Then what's the problem?
Well, because other ports work fine for other devices, it's printer specific. And the answer is don't use that port.
Okay, well that's what we haven't been using that port, but I was just worried because I thought, you know, if there's wrong with that port while my warranty's still in effect, I want to get it taken care of.
Well, again, if you have multiple other USB devices and multiple other USB devices work well in that port, you will be hard pressed to get a lot of attention from Apple. One of the things you might try is running an application like TechTool or something of that sort that examines and tests your computer. It checks all of the ports and all of that kind of stuff. TechTool Pro, I think, is the most recent one, and it checks everything about your computer.
Yeah, I have that.
Yeah, TechTool Pro will analyze the ports and validate them. And, you know, certainly I kiddingly say, you know, don't use that port for that printer, because that's sometimes the quickest and best thing that even I will bother to do. Now, certainly we could track this down to determine exactly what's going on with that printer and that port, etc. But usually it's just not worth the time and trouble. And I appreciate the warranty situation, but even at that, you know, I'm hard pressed to think that it might be worth your time and trouble to figure it out. But TechTool Pro will help you along that path.
You know, just for my own peace of mind, Robert, I'd be tempted to take a flash drive. I'll open up System Profiler and look at the USB port, plug the flash drive into port 1, see what bus it's on, then move it to port 2, port 3, and port 4, and see if all 4 are coming off the same bus, in case there's something different in one of those buses.
Right. I would bet to presume that they wouldn't be, but certainly it is of interest to know, because, for instance, on my MacBook Pro, I have 4 USB-C ports, and but they're not all identical.
Right.
And so there is value to know how they differ.
Because I'm thinking that Apple might have done some kind of a load sharing by maybe running 2 ports to one bus and 2 ports to another bus.
And that goes down the path of can you run the computer with no other USB devices in it, and then plug that printer into that port, and does it still fail? Because there is a power situation that goes on when you plug devices into ports, and you could be overloading a port. And that printer might be the big guy, and he's the last guy plugged in, so the big guy doesn't get all the power he needs. So there's a lot of different things that go on with regard to USB ports behind the scenes that cause things to work and not work.
It's the only reason to use a powered port.
Robert, regarding powered ports, I've been thinking about getting an expanded, power port thing, because right now I do have on one of those 4 USB outputs, I have a little device that plugs in there that allows me to have 3 cables plugged into that port.
Is it powered hub?
It's not a powered hub, no. It's just an adapter that allows you to take the one port and expand it to allow 3 more.
Which can be a problem. I have to break in here for a moment, I have an external CD drive. It doesn't have a power cord. It's a portable USB CD drive. And this hooks up, one cable goes to the drive, and then that goes into a Y with 2 ports for it to plug into 2 USB ports. It takes the power that can only be properly delivered via 2 different ports to give enough power to the drive. And so what that speaks to the fact is that a port is limited to the amount of power. And so they needed 2 here and 2 more here. Now they can get the 4 that they need.
Okay,
So
now
beyond that, not only is each port limited to the amount of power that that port is able to deliver, but the bus in totality has a power limit.
Okay, well, that I understand.
Since you want to power,
I've got a question about powered ports.
Okay, go ahead, Bart.
Yeah, I've got a question about external powered ports. I've seen all sorts of advertisements for them, but the external powered ports indicated in the context of using the ports as devices charged like iPhones and other sorts of accessories like that. Are those the same powered ports you're talking about? Would those allow me to comfortably have my extra stuff in, or are you talking about a different type of powered port? How do I differentiate when I do a search to get just the type of powered port that I need?
You brought up power, and oh my God, power is my life at the moment.
Yes, you look like a very powerful man.
Well, no, I'm just saying power. I'll get into it in a moment, but one of my really cool projects involves power. But anyways, and it's electrical power. One aspect is our different devices, phones, iPads, whatever, have the ability to be charged. And different devices are designed to be able to accept a power at a different rate. Some older devices, some older USB devices from Apple would deliver 1 amp hour current at 1 amp hour rating. An identical looking USB adapter that plugs into the wall might deliver 1.5 or 2 or 2.5 or 3. And so you can't just look at a device and know what that's going to deliver. Newer technology phones have been able to speed charge, and most often we're talking about phones and stuff like this, and that this phone, given that it gets a certain more power to it, it will charge faster. A different phone can't charge at that same rate. So we have things like quick charge and those kind of descriptors that are being used for devices these days. So when you get a car charger or a wall wart, they will be rated at the amount of power that that device is going to deliver when it converts from 110 to your phone, or from the 12-volt battery in your car to your phone, etc. And so you will find in the same device, one port is a standard charge rate, and another port in that same device, if it's multi-port, will charge at a higher rate. Okay, all of that having been said, when you see, as you mentioned, when you see these ratings of 1 or 1.5 amp hour or 2, whatever, on these external but USB hubs or ports, that means that that device is perhaps able to, on its own, be a charging device for your phone. And when you plug this into the wall, not only is it a hub, but because it's plugged into the wall, when you plug it into your phone, it will charge your phone at this certain power level. Okay, that's entirely separate from the ports on the side of your computer that are on this bus or that bus. And that port on the side of your computer, if it's on this bus, it might be capable of transferring data at this rate, and this port over here, this is hooked up to this bus, and that bus can transfer data at a higher rate. So there's data rates that differ amongst ports, but then there's also each port typically has the ability to deliver power. So not only can you hook up a hard drive to move data at different speeds based upon the rating of that port, but the port has, the computer is designed to deliver a certain amount of power to that port. So there's delivering of power to a port on a computer and there's speed. And the same kinds of things happen on these external USB hubs or devices. They may be rating to tell you how much power they can deliver to charge a device, and they may have different limitations for the amount of power that they can pass through
What'd you say?
your devices. And that's, in essence, what you're also often looking for. But recognize, again, when you have a hub and it has one that plugs into the computer and then 4 outlets on the other side, those 4 outlets have to share the amount of power that comes out of that single port on the computer. So that's where an unpowered or hub, the number of devices in there, they each get a portion of the amount of power that's coming out of the computer itself. And that's where we go into active or powered hubs that they plug into the wall such that they are designed to be able to give you an adequate or rather an increased opportunity for power for those devices.
So in other words, on those powered hubs, they do in fact basically compensate for the limitation of the power rating of the port on the computer. They basically supplement the power that the computer is contributing to it, so that you're not overloading the computer when you plug a bunch of stuff.
In essence, for the most part, yes. Again, going back to this portable CD drive I had that had a Y cable that wanted 2 plugs into the computer and one into the drive. If I plugged a hub into the computer and then this hub spread out and had 4 spots, I couldn't plug those 2 into those 2 spots and have accomplished what I needed. But if it was a powered hub, potentially so, because the powered hub would have been increasing the amount of power to each of those devices.
So, hey, Robert, good example. Here's a good example. For years, Bart, here's a good example. For years, desktop PCs had about a 250, 300 watt power supply in them. The new Mac Pro comes with a 1400 watt power supply in it in order to make sure it powers all devices that are in there so that you don't have to worry about running out of juice.
Well, the big kicker there, of course, is the video card, but we'll move on from that. But you know, with regard to USB, as simplistic as it has made our lives, because it is very, very, very much simpler than the way it used to be. Not wanting to detract from the area of power, but USB has gone through a couple of iterations. We now have USB 3, USB 2, which throw away any device that has USB 2. I'm doing that. I'm even have extra Drobo drives that I'm willing to hand off to somebody who is interested in a Drobo, but only operates at USB 2. Then we moved into USB 3.
I might take you up on that offer.
Okay. It's slow, but it'll get the job done.
Right.
But you've got USB 3, and then you have USB 3.1, and then you have USB 3.1 Gen 2. And I'm sorry to say that they are all distinctly different, and you need to care and recognize what this is. Because I've gone out there and purchased flash drives that on the website said USB 3.1 Gen 2. And let me tell my son, I'll call him right back. And USB 3.1 is 1 speed. USB 3.1 Gen 2 is twice as fast as USB Gen 3.1. And I purchased the device, and I went to use it, and I tested it, and 3 out of 3 times, I found out that device was not actually 3.1 Gen 2. No one that I can find is making a flash drive 3.1 Gen 2 yet. And so watch what you're paying, watch what is advertising. It's not always going to deliver what they're saying it is. Sometimes they just copy and paste. Everybody is updating their websites as I go and tell them what the heck they're doing and that it matters. And it just, don't just put it just because you think it's a good thing to say or it sounds good or it's what everybody else is saying. No,
okay.
3.1 Gen 2 is the latest and greatest. That's the high-speed one. 3.1 is the lesser half the speed. But 3.1 is twice the speed of 3.0. So I'm a speed freak. I want 3.1 Gen 2, and they don't make it in a flash drive yet. So there you go.
Okay, well, yeah, my drove by, I believe it's USB 2 drives I've got in there, and they're fast enough for my purpose. But if you've got some more drives you'd like to contribute to me, I could certainly use a couple more of them. But anyhow, getting back to the hub. So basically what I should do is for a hub, buy a powered hub and just make sure that its power rating is sufficient to handle whatever I'm going to plug into it, and be assured that it's going to basically provide to the computer what it needs, no more, no less.
Well, a couple of things. The takeaway again from my story was when you're buying an external hub, be very concerned for what type of USB that is. Is it USB 3? Is it USB 3.1? Is it USB 3.1 Gen 2? And it should be priced accordingly. Don't pay for something that you're really not getting, and then test it after you get it. That's for speed. And then also you have an opportunity to test the power output. And I have a little toy device that I plug into a USB port, and it tests that device, that port, for speed, for power output, and for proper wiring, because there's some bad wiring amongst USB ports. So,
is that device expensive?
$40-50.
Oh, that's a little steep for the one time that I'd probably.
Just have him come out for a house call, Bart. That's a lot cheaper.
It is. It's a tool in the toolbox. But interesting here, I said an aside. One of my clients, you've seen these freeway signs, you're driving down the freeway, it's a big LED sign. It's just, pure LEDs, really bright at night. 3 in the morning, it's overpowering. But point is that these things, sometimes you drive by and it says, the blue screen of death screen, because the PC that's running it, throwing up the image, isn't.
I can't get a hold of her.
Is it working? And so these things use megawatts. I mean, it's like 8,000 watts per side on multi-sided images, 8,000 watts maybe. And so what I've got going on is I have a device that monitors the amount of current that sign is putting out, and we know when it's properly displaying an image, it should be between 7,600 and 7,800 watts. And so I'm going to monitor the amount of current that the sign is using, and if it's out of range, it's going to automatically send me a text or an email so that I can then use one of my cameras that I've got to look up at the screen and see what's going on there. And if it's just a blue screen of death, so to speak, it'll be down there around 200 or 300 watts. And that's my plan. And so that's all about taking the computer and having it, wiring it and such that it can monitor it. And then what I can do is I can remotely reset the circuit breaker at that site, because that's how we fix everything, right, Greg? We power cycle it. And then
a lot of times that solves the problem.
It comes back up and it's within range and everything else. And then I'll automate it such that it's out of range, it automatically resets the circuit breaker, and then it waits to see whether it's going to bug me at 3 in the morning. Because you just, you don't want to miss advertising dollars or wait till somebody cares to figure out who to call to tell that sign has a blue screen of death on there, which just makes you look bad.
Oh.
But, so that's one of my recent projects.
Are you the guy that's responsible for the fact that every time I drive by the Citadel at night, I'm absolutely blinded and can't see the highway in front of me?
We do have well, that's another interesting aspect, because these signs, you have the ability to change the intensity of the lighting, how bright the LEDs are, and which saves money in some ways. But on some of my gas stations, in California, you have to advertise all of the prices for all of the grades. And so you've got a cash price and a debit price and a credit price and regular and mid-grade and premium and diesel and sometimes propane. Well, you've got 12 or more numbers that you have to advertise. And it looks like a Hollywood racetrack, with all the numbers all over here. And you're driving down the street and you can't see what the number is that you really care about because California mandates that they all be displayed. So the trick is to have the cash regular price be nice and bold and bright and have all the other numbers like at 20% brightness. That way you get the legality. What's that?
I said that way they think they're getting a cheaper price when they pull in until they go to use a card.
You have a base price upon which to be able to relate to. And we meet all the California code of advertising the prices. It's just that they're not necessarily the first thing you notice. So, playing with brightness and intensities of all these signs, a lot of fun that you can have with these stuff these days. So, anyway, there you go.
Anyway, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I got to get going.
All right, Frank, good talking to you.
Hey, happy Father's Day to all the fathers on. So we look forward to talking to you on the next one.
Yep.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
See you, Frank.
All right, I can hit the road too, but whoever's left here, Greg's going down there and showing us what he's doing here, there, and everywhere else, and I'm a can-do person. Whatever needs to be done, call Robert. He'll take care of it, figure it out. But I know my limitations. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not. I like to know who around me is my go-to for when I need, because I make a lot of money off of singing and art. People pay me a lot of money to not do it, and so I like to know people who can sing, who can create art. I know I'm going to be giving a chat poke to Greg because I'm going to need a little bit of his help, and hopefully everybody can put a couple dollars in their pocket when I call them. But wondering, is anybody else here out there have a favorite thing that they do? I know Bart, Bart was. Bart, oh, there you are, Bart. Bart's here. If I need some photography done, Bart might be the guy I'm going to call up and say, hey, can you help me out for a couple hours on this job or that? Anybody else have things that they do that they'd like to have some more fun with and make themselves useful in the real world? Anyone want to speak up?
I create silver jewelry with cabochons that I create.
Cabochons. What is a cabochon?
A cabochon is it's a rock, actually, okay. That's a beautiful rock. It's shaped on machines and polished, so it becomes beautiful jewelry.
Okay, so you're a polished stone jewel.
We saw it last year. She does incredible work.
Yeah.
Okay, polished stone jeweler. Who else? Who out there likes to play with a specialty? Okay, there you go.
Porn star count?
Robert, one last question. What is the name of this device that you use to test the power?
Oh, goodness. It's out in my car. I could come up with it in just a moment here.
Well, don't worry about it. You just let me know later on.
Well, it won't take me just a moment. I can find it real easy here.
Okay. Is it expensive?
I buy this stuff and then it.
Yeah.
You buy it.
And there we go. Wow, they've gone down in price tremendously. Whoever might have been wanting this, wow, super cheap. Okay, here's one. Greg, how can I post something to, okay.
You can go to the chat option down at the bottom and it'll automatically send a message to everybody if you want.
I can see share. Is it under share?
No, it's under along the bottom.
Chat. Okay, there's a chat. Type here to everyone. There's that. Okay. here is a device that Amazon has. It'll plug into your USB Type C or Type A, the receiving or getting ports. It'll tell you the voltage, the amperage, and the speeds and all kinds of other stuff. It's wow, and it's way down in price. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize.
Amazon.com. What's the rest of it?
The link is down there.
Just click on the link; it takes you right to the page.
Correct.
$16.49.
17 bucks. They've come down in price tremendously. Tremendous amount of information, telling you the quality of the in every working way. It's just been amazing.
I'm sorry, I still don't understand the website. How I'm gonna get that?
If you click in the chat window, do you have the chat window open?
Oh no! All right, thank you.
And then
okay.
it's a link. You just click on the link, and it takes you right there.
All right, great.
And it does USB-C as well. That's great. So
yes,
you got a little
exactly.
feature.
That's nice. Okay.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right.
Great little tool to have in your toolbox. And it's worthwhile if you're at home and wanting to just test the devices, because it's a pass-through. You plug it into your computer, plug the device into it, and it tells you how much power that device is soaking up and what speed is transferring it at. It's amazing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Greg, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, we'll talk to you all next month. We'll see what goodies we can do between now and then.
Good talking to you, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you all next month.
Okay.
Take care.